And welcome to the City Commission Conference Meeting this July 6th, 2021. Um, We have quite a bit to talk about here on the agenda, but I just want to say I hope you all had a wonderful 4th of July weekend. I know that the city certainly did its part in trying to make this a fun weekend, and I want to thank the city staff for all that it did in putting together Sunday's events. Um, Certainly, it was a milestone in our community, and it's a wonderful way to regain the community's confidence in knowing that we can keep people safe and at the same time make it fun here in our city. Um, we have a number of items to discuss, and we can begin with the communications to the city. And those communications were handed to me. Here they are. Where's Commissioner McKenzie? Is he still outside? Okay. So we have a communications from the Sustainability Advisory Board, and they had sent us a request to, in light of the recent request by the lessee of the Bahia Mar property to extend the current lease, the Sustainability Advisory Board urges the City Commission to reevaluate the importance of this property to the citizens of Fort Lauderdale and to look at this property with the view of bringing it into the public realm and not extend the current lease. The board understands that some development may be required to maintain a world-class marina and event space, but in no event should the property be privatized to individual owners. The iconic property has the potential to be the gemstone and the crown of Venice of America and be an attraction to both visitors and residents alike. This location should be able to support the annual boat show and other events. The residents of Fort Lauderdale recently voted a park bond to create a more public space, and this property fits in with the strong public directive. It is the intention of the SAB that this property be preserved as public space for future generations to come. It seems to echo the sentiments of Commissioner Sorensen, but certainly as we move forward, I think we'll continue to keep those sentiments in mind and try to come up with a fair balance. I think we all can agree that the status quo is not really where we want to be. So I think the consensus of this commission had been expressed previously.
Mayor.
Any comments?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I did have a question. I don't know if Glenn is here, the liaison to this particular board, or if anyone is here from the board. I was just curious because I was reading the minutes in the backup also, and there were some incorrect statements in the minutes and information, but I was just wondering, what is the exact mission or purview of this board?
Yeah, we're prepared to talk about that because I think this falls outside of the scope of the Sustainability Advisory
So if you could help me with that, because when I read the communication and the minutes, I just said, I don't think this is the mission of this board.
The Commissioner, we looked at that. The board, as you may recall, was created in 2010 under Ordinance C-1048, subsequently amended a couple times, but more recently in 2019. And without going through all the bullet points, we've looked at it, and we really didn't find how this is within the purview of the Sustainability Board at any point in their stated mission. Again, I have the ordinances. I can read them if you want, but it really doesn't fit.
Well, I appreciate that, but is there a short version of the mission or what's within their purview?
Sure. Back to their originating ordinance, the board is created, and I quote, "The board is created to assist in establishing the city of Fort Lauderdale as a leader in environmental sustainability by providing recommendations to the City Commission concerning affordable strategies associated with conservation, renewable energy, and energy efficiency." It goes on to talk about research with regards to environmentally sound practices that will reduce greenhouse gas emissions, save money, energy, and resources, participation in creating an environmental strategic plan that promote environmental sustainability. incentives for residents, businesses, developers, and organizations to practice environmental conservation, adoption, prioritization, implementation of initiatives, actions, policies, and public outreach and education regarding sustainability, those types of things, dealing mostly with seemingly energy conservation. And then in 2019, it was added, climate change and sea level rise was added in 2019.
Right, and I think with regards to Bahia Mar, climate change and sea level rise, I probably should have even mentioned that in our workshop, but that's going to be very important going forward with the actual reworking of that peninsula. And I've already had those conversations with the tenants during our meetings, Mayor. We didn't talk about that too much today, but that is going to be a very important component going forward with regards to sea level rise. So I thank you for that information, Alan, but I too wanted to echo the mayor's comments that I think no one's going to disagree with much of that. But like, for instance, in the minutes, it says that there's still 49 years left on the lease, and it's not true. And there's some other things that were just, they were too much of opinions and not necessarily facts. And then again, when I read the communication, although I would not disagree with much of the sentiment involved in that communication, I think that's exactly what we are doing. And I, again, just was questioning their mission as a board and the purview of the board. So will you be going back or telling Glenn, the liaison, to the board what you thought about this communication?
Well, again, without disagreeing with necessarily the communication itself, the content of which I probably will raise that with him, just curious as to how it came up and why the discussions were had. We can't obviously control necessarily what the boards want to discuss, but it's certainly a conversation I can have.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other comments? Okay. The Economic Development Advisory Board is the next communication, but I didn't see anything that was related to the commission. It was just an adoption of their minutes. So I'm not sure why that was added to our agenda
They just wanted to change times.
for their meeting.
Yes, for the second Wednesday to each month from 3 to 5.
Excuse me, we have a person who asked to speak with regard to the SAB communication, so I'm sorry I did not see that. Before we jump to this, well, let's just finish on the Economic Development Advisory Board. Is there anything here that you see?
I think it was just simply to reschedule the time.
Their meeting.
Their meetings.
Okay.
Their meeting.
There's nothing, okay. Mr. Chettle, I'm sorry, I didn't see
it's
that you
allowed.
wanted to speak on the Sustainability Advisory Board items, so please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, Commission. I agree with the communication from the Sustainability Advisory Board. This is not the first time that they have weighed in on Bahia Mar. I am opposed to condos, obviously, which is what they were reacting to. I believe that it's public land. I don't believe that we should be selling any part of public land. And specific to their communication about maintaining the existing lease, as you know, Mayor, I met with you for 50 minutes in your office, and I walked you through repeated violations of the existing Bahia Mar lease. And this is not specific just to Bahia Mar. This is a pervasive problem. We have Las Olas Marina, where we have violated that lease. We're in technical default. The last meeting that we had, we were in technical default for a year and 19 days. We may still be. We don't seem to abide by the trips cap on the beach. We didn't abide by the beach redevelopment plan. We have problems with the noise ordinance. We have just a list of problems where we are selectively enforcing. I just introduced myself to Mr. Mark Fine, the Strategic Communications Director, and I said to him, maybe we should send out a list of ordinances and laws, and I said this half-heartedly, that we do abide by. If we are going to, for example, give away subleases on Bahia Mar and not know who the entity is, and I'm not going to embarrass somebody, but somebody was asked a question as to who owns the sublease for the marina, and they said Suntex, and that actually is not correct. In addition to that, they gave away subleases to the marina, and that wasn't even presented to the city. Article 26 is very clear: financial responsibility, business capability, written request, 30-day period, the whole deal. I mean, there are, it's a legal document. You, as a person wearing a different hat in your day job, you're an attorney. This country is differentiated from other countries because we have a rule of law. We have a legal document. It's a lease. We should abide by the lease. And the concern is that if we're not enforcing the existing lease, then why would we even think about or entertain the possibility of extending the lease? The bottom line is this: we have an inventory of incredible assets in the city. This city has incredible intrinsic value, and we repeatedly find ways where we are not maximizing that. On this evening's consolidated budget amendment, there's $1.4 million that we're going to pay Lockhart Stadium for their permits and fees. We gave them the land for nothing. You're telling me that we give them the land for nothing and we pay their permits and fees? What do we get? I'm just asking. You know, I mean, this is the same thing when you look at the Suntex Marina, the Los Olas Marina. Compare that marina deal with the marina deal that the Miami Beach residents got. Ours is a joke. It's a joke. We don't get anything. And on top of that, we're in year 5. So anyway, I agree with the communication. I think that we should stop being selectively enforcing of leases, and I look forward to your rebuttal. Thank you.
Okay, if I can respond to that, I think your comments are really off base. And if I can begin by saying that you asked the question, what did we get by having Inter Miami building the stadium out there? Perhaps you've not been out to the stadium, but we have a stadium. And the stadium has been there for multiple purposes, not just for their team play. You might have noticed also that there's a football field that they donated their expense to build for at least 2 high schools to be able to use for their purposes. You might have also noticed that there are practice fields for soccer teams that is also available for use. You might have also noticed that that there are amenities that the city and the community can continue to benefit from as a result of what we have done. So yes, while we have given them a nominal rent, and by the way, in 50 years we own that place. In 50 years we own that place. So yes, I'm an attorney, and I know the deal. Okay, and anybody who looked at the deal knows that in 50 years we own the stadium. So I think it's misinformation that you're spreading to the community here, and people are hearing what you're saying as if it's the truth, and it's not the truth. None of it is the truth. Now, with regard to the so-called violations of the lease agreement, we consulted with our city attorney. Those aspects of the lease agreement that you say are in violation are not in violation. They're not. Okay. Well, I'm just telling you they are not in violation, and if there are opportunities for us here to create a more informed commission, and I think that the community will benefit from that if we're able to renew some of these leases and perhaps do a better job at wording them. Anyway, anyone have any other comments on it?
Mayor, I'd just like to echo your sentiments with regards to the Las Olas Marina project as well, and the benefits that will come to the city and to the public with regards to that project. Very similar to much of what you just mentioned in terms of Lockhart. So I wanted to dispute that assertion as well. Thank you.
Okay. So in terms of the other economic development advisory board, there was really nothing for no commission action. The planning and zoning meeting requests the city commission to ask staff to make a presentation to the board in regard to what the city is accomplishing to mitigate flooding, specifically in the northwest area north of Sistrunk Boulevard. Is that something that the planning and zoning board is entitled to get a presentation on?
I've expressed this opinion before. In our opinion, my office's opinion, my opinion, it's beyond, unless it's dealing with a specific, even though they are the planning agency, this particular topic is not really directed towards that mission, nor is it related to a particular item or matter that they're dealing with. Previously, I think the issue was they wanted a presentation on infrastructure, the status of infrastructure from Public Works. And again, I think unless it's going to be related to a matter that's coming before them or within their role as the planning agency, I think it's beyond their purview, and it may create problems down the line should something come up with regards to any items they have before them, because then they'll be relying on staff presentations that the applicant or other parties involved wouldn't be privy to.
Okay, but having said that, and I understand that, but having said that, these folks are entitled to information regarding, as citizens, they're entitled to know what projects the city is engaged in, whether it be the northwest, the southwest, or wherever side of the city that we're doing stormwater or any kind of mitigation on flood relief. Whatever projects we're involved with, they're certainly entitled to that information. Is that correct?
Individually, but as a
Individually.
board, individually, sure.
Yeah.
But as a board, they're asking for staff presentation, which, again, on the operational side, we've tried to limit those types of general presentations from staff because it also takes up a lot of staff time, and we have many boards. So,
Anybody have any questions regarding that communication? Okay.
Just a comment, Mayor.
Yep.
Because in the minutes that were attached to that from the Planning and Zoning Board on June 16th, 2021, there was discussion about this particular area in and around Flagler Village. And there was a discussion of storm sewers not being properly maintained by the city. And then they got into a discussion a little bit further about that. So I just wanted to make sure that we are, at least if we're not going to be able to make a presentation, at least address some of the issues that, prompted them to request that presentation.
as long as it's as long as it's related to business that's before them, and not just a general inquiry.
Okay, thanks.
I think they can come. They probably can come to us. We have a workshop, and I could be wrong, but talking about public works and our infrastructure, which we have been having those conversations. And I mean, it's not just the Northwest drains; it's drains throughout the city, which leads to even our leaf blowers and what we're going to bring back to you after the break. A lot is going on, and but it just. If they brought it to us, I think we can talk about it. But again, you sat on that board, planning and zoning. It's whatever's being asked of permission to move forward in our permitting process is what that board is responsible for.
Do we have a tentative date for that leaf blower report?
We're gonna try to schedule it. So if we don't do it in September, to be the next one. But we are diligently working on on coming back with you with something.
Thank you.
All right, good.
I know it's important.
It is. People ask me all the time about
But you know what? Speaking of that, I've gone a step further because I'm driving the city now every inch that I can, and was looking at, especially after rains. I know we talk about what goes in the drains, but a lot of stuff is from palm trees falling, which is in the reports that staff has given us. But I was at the corner of 6th Street and Federal, and they were like boxes, like empty boxes. Like maybe they fell off a truck or something, but they were just going down the drains. So I mean, unless we come up with a solution year round about our drains, I think more than people blowing leaves are impacting what's going into our drain systems. So I mean, I just see all sorts of trash, especially after rains, that are hanging in. And every time I've reported a blockage, it's been because something went down that curb and got to that drain and got stuck and blocked it up, and the water could not drain as efficiently as the design of the drain to do so. And every time I've contacted staff, they come out and 20 minutes later the water's gone. But it's more than what we think it is in terms of these storm drains.
Right.
So they're right over there, but
maybe we should put a screen over the drain rather than just typical grill or grate that goes over it.
I still think in a strong rain, if we put a screen, a pot, or if no one's there unclogging it,
Right.
we have the same problem. It's, when it's not raining, it's okay.
All right.
Maybe we just need maintenance during the rain.
Well, that's a manpower thing.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Okay, the last communication is from the Citizens Police Review Board. Citizen Police Review Board has requested an update on the following open requests and recommendations. The list is, there's 4 recommendations. Chris, have you looked at this at all?
I have, and I've met with the chief on it. I can run through them real quick and just give you a quick update, and I'll be happy to send a communication back to the CPRB with an update. The 4 bullet points, first one talks about some ordinance changes as it relates to the Citizen Police Review Board's function. That's been worked on in the city attorney's office. We have determined that it does not need to be bargained with the FOP, but that The next step in that is for me to sit down with the president of the FOP and just go through the changes with him as a courtesy. And then it'll be before the commission for your consideration. City attorney doesn't characterize the changes as on an order of magnitude as tremendous or huge, I think was the word he used. So we'll get it in place as quick as we can, but we don't think it has to be bargained. Is that
No,
correct?
that's correct. The FOP had reached out initially believing that it is something that needed to be bargained, but after review, we determined that it is not. And I think conversations with the FOP with regards to the proposed changes will suffice, and everyone should be happy at that point.
About the next one.
Yeah, with respect to the next one that talks about the voluntary national use of force database, Chief Lynn doesn't have any problem with our participation in that and has indicated that. With respect to a joint follow-up workshop, I think it makes sense that since we have now appointed a new permanent chief that will begin on August 16th, I think is appropriate to do that joint meeting when we have the benefit of the new chief being here. So we'll look towards after the break to get that scheduled. And I met with Chief Lynn on this annual response to resistance report for 2020 and its analysis. And that is something that we do on a ongoing basis. That's something that's done in our internal affairs group. And the chief indicated to me that we would, in fact, be able to do that analysis and come to conclusions to the extent that it drew any conclusions. So I'll put all that back in a form of a memo and I'll send it back to the CPRB.
Anyone have any questions? Commissioner Sorensen, Glassman, McKenzie, Vice Mayor. Okay. All right. That's it
Thanks,
for
Mayor. Thanks, Chris. Yeah.
communications. So we move on to business one. This is the Uptown South Master Plan. Who's going to be speaking?
Mr. Mayor, I think we're going to look towards Anthony's group, and it looks like it's going to be Anthony and Jim making the presentation.
Jim? Okay.
Yes, good afternoon, Mayor. Anthony Fajardo, Department of Sustainable Development. Jim Hetzel is going to be doing the presentation.
Speak more loudly. Thank you.
You're joking, right?
No, actually, we have little signs up that says, friendly reminder, please speak into your microphone for the benefit of the viewing public. Thank you, Anthony.
Okay.
Take
It
yourself
sounds
off.
really loud over here.
Unmute yourself.
And Jim.
Jim, which one is it?
Wasn't quite sure if Anthony was done there. Jim Hetzel, Principal Urban Planner with DSD.
That's all he had to say. And
That's
really?
all he had to say. Not very much, huh? He'll come back for more at the end. So Anthony mentioned Uptown South presentation. This is a staff preliminary redevelopment analysis report that was conducted pretty recently. Just providing an overview of the area called Uptown South. Kind of get into it here in the introduction slide. So what staff looked at was the area just east of the stadium. And it's just south of Uptown Urban Village, if you recall that adoption of the area up there. It's about 192 acres in size. And this is a preliminary analysis report where staff just looked at the land use and the zoning, also some case studies to kind of do a comparison and then provided some recommendations at the end. So just some overview of existing conditions and land use. Most of the area is industrial, high-intensity commercial uses. A lot of viable businesses exist out there. Extreme Action Park would be included, BJ's in Broward County, state of Florida, all land ownership. What's interesting is the industrial is the majority of the land use designation. And of the industrial land use throughout the entire city, this makes up about 19% of our industrial land use throughout the entire city. So I just want to point that out. The zoning obviously is commercial and business industrial, you see there on the bottom of the slide. I won't go through all the challenges and opportunities. I'll just highlight a couple of them. But some of the challenges, obviously, the proximity to the airport, FXE, is a challenge for this area. There's also the loss of industrial land use, as I mentioned, the limitation or limits that we have throughout the city. There's also this ability to creating an artificial district if you wanted to create a district of some sort. Some of the opportunities, there's obviously proximity to the airport sits in there as well. Also adaptive reuse, ability to reuse the buildings or areas out there, and the proximity to the stadium as well. There's also a lot of government-owned land in the area, Broward County and the state of Florida owned very large pieces of land, as well as the city of Fort Lauderdale owns land there as well. So what staff did is looked at a couple different case studies to do a comparison. Three of them specifically. One, Fat Village, which is within the city. Wynwood, which is down in Miami. And then we looked outside the region at the Columbus Arena District. So Fat Village, obviously we're very familiar with Fat Village. You know, the uses are very similar to what we have here, although it's in downtown and transitioning. The size is much smaller than the Uptown South area, but these are some similarities and differences between the two that we wanted to look at how Fat Village got created. One of the unique things, of course, is the creation of kind of a business group that how we're advocating for the change in the area. I think that's really key in kind of getting that grassroots effort going, and Fat Village had that. Wynwood's much larger, 523 acres in size, so it's much, much larger than the Uptown South area. Uses are very similar as well, industrial warehouse uses in the area. Also, what's interesting is this had a business improvement district. So the property owners got together and created a business improvement district, which helped foster a lot of the redevelopment and gentrification that occurred down in Wynwood. Columbus Arena District. This is interesting because this was a sports district that was created from land that was pretty much blighted and coming apart, in the sense that they put together a concept to do a sports district. Got money associated with it, also had a district created for funding and financing reasons, so that's important with the grassroots effort as well. And the document basically gives a couple conclusions. So public outreach is important, understanding what the property owners view and understand as their property rights and also what their zoning allows for currently today. There's also the impact to what would be changed. So what staff is looking at is what are the flexibility and opportunities available to them today without having to change anything. The other thing is the absence of a local grassroots group or effort in this area. There's not one that exists. There's also the economic and market analysis that would be needed because we have a lot of competing interests throughout the entire city, from Uptown Urban Village, which is just north of this, to Fat Village downtown, to the beach and so forth. So looking at how all that balances out. And there's also the benefits from the stadium. We're not quite sure what the economic benefits are because of the pandemic and what that spillover effect would be for the area. So some of the recommendations that staff put forward in here is to do a public outreach, to reach out to the property owners and give either a one-page pamphlet or document that kind of explains what what's available to them today and whether or not they wish to change any of that. There's also the identification of resources. If we were going to take this a step further, getting funding, which we secured funding for another step, which kind of leads into the last recommendation, which is procuring a consultant. And right now we're working with the Tyndall Oliver Group, which is the same consulting group that did the Uptown Urban Village, so they're familiar with the area. We reached out to them through the Transportation Mobility Department continuing contracts, and they are interested if we move forward. And with that, that's pretty much it, unless there's any questions.
So, Vice Mayor.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Jim and Anthony, for working on this. I appreciate it. You did talk a little bit about next steps. What would the next steps be if we chose to at least continue just researching this idea?
The way staff is looking at it is public outreach first, kind of reach out to the property owners and kind of get them engaged as far as what they are able to do under current zoning and land use, meaning if they wanted to change anything, what would be permissible today. The second is to gauge their interest in changing anything. You know, would they want something changed to allow for more uses or a different type of development, and kind of gauge like any kind of gentrification desire for the area.
Okay, when I'm thinking of changes, I'm also thinking maybe a little big picture, like what is our county or South Florida, you know, what do we really need? What are some opportunities? What are some growing businesses that may want to come in this area? My gut would tell me the current people who are already there want to keep things the same. Based on my 3 years of experience, I think that's clear for anything that we ever do in the city. So I think when we're looking at opportunities, it's probably good to maybe go outside of that too. So just to give the commission an update also, you know, when, of course, we have the Inter Miami Stadium, what we are looking at on the south side of Inter Miami Stadium, of course, is the park, but we've talked about this community center that we're building. We're looking into, at the community center, some possible opportunities. And I think the opportunities that we bring to that space, once again, could have an impact on the greater area as well. Just to give you all an update, we're looking at 2 stories of a community center, and possibly the second story could be, have something to do around the esports industry. And we don't have an arena for esports really, and I believe it's South Florida. We don't have an arena. So building something like that would once again put us on the map regionally, so not just necessarily in this neighborhood. And with the possibility of creating a boring tunnel that would dump out right there at Lockhart Park, that would also open up amazing opportunities from Brightline to Lockhart Park. So once again, that's an opportunity that would put us on the map regionally. So when I was meeting with the Alliance recently, talking about, I'm always talking to businesses and partners, whether it's the Alliance, the workshop, the chamber, what do we need in this area? Because I do feel like Uptown is just ripe with opportunities, not just because it's my district, but just because I have spent a lot of time out there. I know we already have 200 successful businesses, 70,000 employees, and a lot of opportunity. Now, I would not want to take away from what's there. So I would want it to be market driven. So I wouldn't go in and say, well, you can no longer operate in your industrial business. But is there a way, based on the market, if a business stopped operating, maybe something else could come in and fill that space? That's really probably what I would want to see, as opposed to changing and taking away. I would want to just see, could we offer opportunities? Because when we say we're flexible and we may allow additional uses, then we start attracting other people who may want to come here. I mean, I think we can talk to SpaceX next. Maybe they want to come here too. We have a lot of opportunities. And once again, I think this area has the most, I would probably say, in our city. I really do. And I saw on your report that we don't want to necessarily compete with our downtown. I agree with you, but I hear businesses, I've had conversations, there are businesses relocating to Fort Lauderdale from all over the world. So I don't think we're competing. I think we're opening up additional opportunities. I mean, my most recent conversation, I don't know if some of you all met with them, was the company out of Germany where it's like a taxi cab that flies and they need to take off somewhere. I don't know if Rufus likes that idea, but we will bring him in next to see if, I don't know if that would compete with the airspace out there but so I don't want to take away from anything that's happening, but what year did we adopt these zoning maps with the current industrial, commercial, and everything that you already mentioned?
So most of what you see in the city of Fort Lauderdale was adopted in 1997 when there was a mass rezoning done throughout the city.
Okay, so 1997.
It's possible this area was industrial well before that, but 1997 is a big benchmark.
Yeah. Probably when we were born, right? Probably it was industrial back for a while, I would say, as long as, well, you had the airport. We can
No,
look at the
actually,
during the war.
when
you were born.
we were born, yes, and even when I was in my starting my professional career from 1986 to the mid 90s is when it started changing a little bit. Some of the bigger manufacturing companies left here, but this was a manufacturing town at one time, especially up at the Uptown district. So as we started annexing various parts of the city, we took in things that didn't have the uniqueness of a neighborhood, like a Las Olas Isles and those particular neighborhoods that kind of defined who Fort Lauderdale was. So we started adding pieces. Mm-hmm. So when we took Uptown, it was just that, an industrial piece that didn't have parks. It didn't have some of the things that we typically put in these urban neighborhoods. So your desire now to move in that direction is good, but it was a striving manufacturing industrial area. A lot of my friends' parents retired from Bendix. Some of the airline industry parts, Boeing were built right there and sold and shipped around the world. So
Sure.
There's a history there.
Yep.
That kind of went away, and a lot of the airport property we see kind of expanded on some of on some of those properties. We're doing better in that industry now as a result of some of those companies leaving, but we're always going to have to reinvent ourselves as the economy shifts, whether it's in downtown, uptown, east town, or any part of a town.
Right.
Economics dictate what's the next thing happening, and we just experienced COVID. A lot of people aren't going back into buildings. A lot of this stuff is going to be at home and virtual. So as we sit here as policymakers, we have to take all that in consideration. So, and even the esports, I mean, that's a great idea. We almost had one right here at the corner of 9th Avenue and Sistrunk, but Fuse Group decided to move in a different direction, and we ended up with the gym there. So we're always evolving. I love what you're trying to do. I would like to be a part of it, but you got to direct and drive that ship as to where you want it.
Right. Well, just like the mayor and District 2 commissioner did such a great job helping redefine Bahimar. I do need the commission to.
But you know what's funny?
This
And I made a comment to this, and this is for your own benefit.
Yeah.
He's been around here for like 18 years. So he's seen a lot.
Right.
He left, came back, and he stood his ground. And oftentimes we weren't on the same side of the fence, but today we were. But it's because of what he wanted to see, what he had been hearing, and he was able to stay in the game. We got a new commissioner that's much better than he is, and they got together, and we went a step further. Are we there? No, but we all have to evolve and change as things change. I would love to see Lockhart Stadium the way it was when I was there, but when that beautiful idea came to fruition, we had to embrace it, and we took off with it. I mean, but look at what we did. So now we're here with you again in Uptown. We got to figure out what it is you really want, and let's figure out how we get there. I mean,
Well, yeah, and I appreciate what Anthony said. It should be a grassroots effort and not necessarily just top-down approach. So I don't want to necessarily dictate what happens, but I would like to explore what could be in that whole area. And I really started thinking about it once Lockhart Inter Miami built that stadium. I thought for sure somebody's going to want to build something around here, whether it's
Well,
entertainment.
the problem was that it got built and then we had COVID.
Correct. So
that kind of
now we're back.
right. Well, the thing is,
We're opening up.
so I think what Anthony's saying is that we first of all we do need industrial areas. I mean,
I
Fort
agree.
Lauderdale we need a service aspect to our community. We can't just be all one of can't all be boutiques and restaurants.
I
So so the thing is that we do need a component there. And you had indicated, well, if not there, where can we usher it into another area of the city? But to that extent, I think the market must make that determination.
Yeah, I
Private
agree.
investors would need to come in and say, look, we want to, this is an area that I think there's a higher and better use for this area than what's currently being used for. And the market usually comes in there and defines that. Yeah. What we saw today in the backup was like in Columbus and also in other places like in Portland, they had what's called the Pearl District. The Pearl District was an industrial area, kind of a warehouse area, and it got slowly converted into kind of a hip kind of, place where there's retail, restaurants, clubs, beer joints, and things like that.
Flagler.
Yeah. Except Flagler, there was nothing.
Yeah, but before you guys
Well, maybe before I came around. Yeah.
You guys came to this town. It was industrial there. So don't
Okay.
forget the history, Stephen.
Yeah. Anyway,
We tore it down. We
don't
tore
say
it.
anything.
But we tore it down
and we
with a
didn't replace
35-year plan for this stuff to come back the way it is. So a lot of planning went into it, a lot of sacrifices, and then those people came in who made the investments. But look at Flagler Village now. And there's another piece across the tracks here to the west, the industrial piece, that we got to change the whole use for that Flagler piece to be fully built and active the way we want it to.
So to the extent that Columbus took I guess a similar site and they repurposed it, they redefined it, they made it an entertainment district. I don't know what this industrial area should be turned into, but I do believe that now that we have the stadium, and hopefully there will be not just the need but the vision. I mean, I could see hotels being invested there. I can see more touristy kind of things that are connected to the stadium. It's right near our executive airport. It's near It's near a business park. In the early '80s.
Transportation. Yep.
Yeah, in the early '80s, there was a huge growth along Cypress Creek Road to build more and more business offices. So to some extent, we have to let the private enterprise make that decision. But we can certainly create a vision, and I do believe in that. And we can maybe see if we create the vision, if the private sector wants to buy into it. And I think that if we do create such a vision, it should be something that is that would work with and be synonymous with the whole sports environment that we've created there now with the stadium.
Is there any data out there that's telling us what the behavior of the people in that area, what they want, even with Inter Miami? I mean, these folks, they do this for a living, so they're going to have data that's going to kind of let them know if they want to stay here, grow here, invite some more people here to do exactly what you're saying. So there's data. I mean, is that data out there somewhere? Do we have any of that data, Anthony?
So there is some in the background in the document that we provided, but I was also speaking to Daphne over in Economic Community Investment, and she's going to help us look into it a little deeper. So what we'll probably recommend at this point is continue with that, get some information put together, and then we can transmit that to the City Commission.
Sure. And once again, I don't want to take away, obviously we appreciate our industrial. I think as cities emerge and evolve, it seems like industrial and recreational can coexist almost. Like people don't mind kind of hanging in that space.
There are opportunities today. So even in the industrial area, you can rezone to community business subject to flex allocation of square footage if there's any available, and I believe there is some here. So there is an opportunity today for individual property owners. If they want to do some sort of bar, restaurant concept, they could do it, be processed to go through. It's similar, it'd be effectively a rezoning. And then in the B3 portion, there's opportunities there. So that's part of why staff is saying we'll do some outreach and let them know, this is possible for you to consider if you'd like to, or if you want to come talk to us about other options, we can definitely explore those.
I think what you just said, though, there is a process that's involved. If they want to, I think that's what we need to remove in order to possibly attract new businesses to the area. Remove the process so that they know if they purchase blank property, they already have that guarantee that that business can come in. So that's probably what I would recommend or maybe like to see, keep what we have, but give an additional opportunity without going through the process.
So
I don't know if that's rezoning. I don't even know what that is.
That would take probably an extensive look at our land use and probably coming up with some alternative there, which requires a comp plan amendment and a future land use map amendment, and then a subsequent rezoning. We don't really have an industrial land use that covers that broad of a spectrum. The purpose of allowing flex is to allow that to happen.
Okay.
But to your point that there is a process involved. So if we wanted to look at removing that, we're going to have to do some additional.
Well, and I don't want to direct you unless kind of everybody has this.
Are you thinking of like a charrette of some sort? Is that
well, they would need to do that. But like I said, my concern would be not necessarily with the current owners because they have their business and I want them to continue to thrive. It may be with somebody outside of that footprint that maybe could, I mean, I've talked with, even when we talk about esports a lot, there are a ton of different businesses who may even be attracted to this space if we were to have that anchor of the esports arena. So would we be able to allow that business to come in? Because if we can't, then all of a sudden we haven't really created the opportunities that we could.
Do we have any examples of people that are coming in the last 8 years that we had to use this process on?
The flex process I mentioned?
Yeah.
Yes. So the Wawa that's not far from here, that and what was supposed to be the Chick-fil-A next door was done through a flex process. That was industrial zoning, reflected in commercial square footage.
So if I wanted to do what the Vice Mayor is asking to do, that process we use for those two projects is probably faster and more efficient than trying to redo the use that would take a longer time.
If someone wanted to come in today, that process is definitely faster because in order for us to do a land use amendment, you're probably looking at about 18 months.
Yeah.
Well, no one's going to come in the next 18 months necessarily, but so long term, maybe that is a possibility. Short term, I mean, that flex stuff, it could get gobbled up and change, right? I mean, there is a cap on the flex.
Highly unusual based on what I've seen, but I'm not, he's the expert, I'm not, but I've been a part of the flex conversations for years. Both
Yeah,
Plenty of
Commissioner-
it.
there, I don't
it's just
know.
how you
Allocate.
allocate them.
There,
So Jim was telling me that there's 500 acres of flex acreage available. So I mean,
There's
in terms of
plenty.
it being used up anytime soon, I doubt that. We don't see these a
Yeah.
lot.
is this, and that's citywide, the flex, the 500 flex? So it is possible. What's the approval process on getting that flex?
It's basically a rezoning. So you go to Planning and Zoning Board and 2 readings at City Commission.
So, okay, so it's all internal. It doesn't go to the county? It doesn't? No, that's just
No,
we change
the,
it?
the comprehensive plan allows you to flex in certain situations. That's one of them.
Okay, so we currently have it. So I guess if we currently have it and we are able to do it, and like we've said, we really want it to be market driven anyways. So if we did have opportunities in businesses who want to come here and there is an open space because someone sells, then we are able to do it. What would be the benefit of continuing with the Uptown South master plan? Would it be more for marketing purposes, possibly to tell these businesses that we're here? This is an opportunity. If you so choose. Like I said, I don't know what even businesses know when they come here necessarily.
Yeah, in my opinion, I think it's a good tool for letting them know exactly that. We've got the redevelopment of the stadium. There's probably some opportunities to see a spillover effect from that. Are you interested in having these conversations about what you could or couldn't do on your property based on any kind of future redevelopment potential? So the fact that we haven't had anyone really provide any outreach to us,
Right.
we want to take it in the other direction, just see if the interest is there.
Right.
We did have a presentation from Colliers not that long ago that talked about this area as part of the presentation. They recognized that it was, it's functioning, it's flourishing. The businesses are doing well. They did state that there is potential for some redevelopment, but that the businesses are doing very well. So I just don't know today what interest anyone has in changing the status quo.
Okay, but if there is interest in the future, once we even take the next step, and, I know the airport recently did a master plan, and there's that 7-acre parcel that's kind of available if somebody wanted to come up with something big and come here too. So, like I said, I think we have a few things that are not really fully solidified at this point, but they probably will be coming in the next year or two. So I just want to make sure once those ideas, especially with the community center, are voted in by the commission, that we are open and welcome and ready for anybody else who may want to come here. So it sounds like we can do it now. Would there be any reason to continue with this master plan, or do we just say this master plan that we already did is sufficient?
Well, the document is, I'm sorry, Mayor, did you want to? The document's not really a full-blown master plan. It's just an assessment of what's in the area.
Okay.
So if you wanted us to move forward with some sort of master plan, that'll take a lot more work. And that's where I think a consultant will probably be beneficial, just if not from a resource standpoint, just from a background standpoint. Staff could definitely do it. It just takes a lot of time.
Okay,
But
so that's
my recommendation, if I was asked tonight, would be let us do the outreach and see what kind of response we get before we take any other steps that are, possibly go down a path that no one really wants without any feedback. So if we can talk to the property owners and just see what they're thinking and what their long-term plans may be, that might guide us a little bit better on what we do next as far as next steps. And we'll continue to work with Daphne and her group on possibly marketing the area to different, she has some good ideas and thoughts on different businesses that would work there.
in addition to the property owners who are in that footprint, we may want to expand it to the property owners who are outside of that footprint that have large companies too, even off of Cypress, because maybe they want to expand, or maybe they know. My concern with only doing outreach, I think we should include them, but I think we should do additional outreach. And Daphne, one group that I speak to, I'm actually speaking to them, I think in August, is the Chamber has an Uptown group. And there are a lot of businesses there, and when I speak with them, they like the idea of kind of exploring new opportunities. Of course, the Alliance, I talk with them, and they're doing an inventory, an asset inventory of kind of what's available in this county in terms of attracting larger businesses. So once again, getting the Alliance involved and letting them know that this is a possibility. What do they think? I think will be some good feedback too. In addition to the businesses in the footprint, of course, we have our Uptown master plan that we already approved, which is going to allow for 2,000 residential units to come up there. So we have the park, we have the businesses, we have the stadium, we have new residential coming, we have transportation. So now it's kind of like, what's next, right? And so I think we should just continue having the conversation. So you're saying you want to do the outreach, and after you do the outreach, you'll come back to us, and then we will determine if we want to continue on and pay for another master plan? Is that what you're suggesting?
I think that's the best course of action, in my opinion. That way we have more information, can give it to you, and you can make a decision based on that.
Okay. Does that work for you all?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, so we won't
It
spend
makes a
any
lot of
more
sense.
money on, okay. So thank you for doing that outreach, and you might want to include Zoe too, because we've had a lot of conversations about.
But I still
that.
think your key is what's next.
Yep.
You mentioned all those things you did without changing something. Now, what's next is how we keep moving this thing forward, because who wants to come and join this momentum? Just keep bringing in what next is, and I think it'll catch on itself.
Right. And I would like to be able to say if a business owner approaches me that, yes, you can come here with some level of certainty, or at least understand what the process is.
Absolutely.
To say that. And the commission supports the idea of entertaining new industries or development only if a current industry chooses to do that.
And you see it all the time with the mayors. I mean, dating back to the last mayor, this mayor, he goes somewhere, comes back, hey, I got this company. And he assures them that Fort Lauderdale is going to welcome them. We do everything we can to make sure that they can make Fort Lauderdale their homes. Even though he initiated it, even though you might have initiated it, when you bring it here, we want companies coming here day in and day out. So, I mean, it's not so much that we want to spend 18 months or 18 years trying to redraw our plan. Let's bring them here and let's reshape it if we can.
Well,
Right.
to that point, ironically, there's an industrial.
Oh, here we go.
Industrial.
One in this pocket.
Bring them on if it's a good industrial.
There's a high-tech manufacturing concern that wants to locate to Fort Lauderdale and is looking at that 7 acres.
Good.
And it would bring hundreds of jobs and hundreds of millions of dollars of investment. So,
Yes.
so things are working, and I think, but I think your point is well taken. Let's put it out there, see what people's attitudes and thoughts are, and maybe we can come up with something that going forward works to our advantage in trying to improve the areas that we now have.
And I do think that is the unique part of Uptown, what you just said. It could be a combination of those industries, the high-tech manufacturing arm, also, so it ties in the industrial use, but then there's also the high-tech component that we're all trying to build out. We need someone to build some more chips, right, for a computer. We need a chip company there. That would be, so. Thank you. So we can say or come up with some degree of certainty that, this is, Uptown's open, we're flexible, we want to encourage and not really incentivize, but at least allow them to come based on some rezoning if it's the right fit for our area. Okay, so we'll.
I had one at Riverbend right up here across from Walmart, where Strayer University is, and the new Chipmunk. 30-something years ago, they planned for that to be a residential piece. They bought shopping plazas, they bought a housing component, and when under my watch, I wanted something there so desperately, but nothing was happening with the economy. I mean, they even thought about bringing the heat there one time back in the beginning, and they were talking about bringing the supervisor election there. They had a whole bunch of ideas depending on who was sitting here and what was going on with the economy. So 30-something years later, it comes to me, and I really wanted residential units because that's what I was promised. But we looked at who purchased it. They came to us with a proposal. We kind of massaged it, and we have an industrial piece over there that turned out very nicely. It bought about 300 jobs. We kicked it off, and we're still working with what else we can bring to that corridor, which is right next to Tri-Rail. So, but it wasn't what I wanted, but we got something there, and that corner is taken off now. So we got all those shops across the street. We got a mobile home park was just torn down. We got apartments there. Did I want apartments? No, probably single-family homes or condos. But you know what? It beats what was there, and now we're looking for what's next. We even got a spin car wash. We got a
Commissioner, we will fulfill your vision. I promise you.
Yes.
you gonna get your residential.
Somewhere.
But no, it can work because I think you guys said we are the can-do commission. I think we can get it done. Just bring them. Bring them.
Good. And I do want it to stay a business community. I mean, for the
Yeah.
record, I definitely want it to be all businesses, but what type of business, we may need to be a little bit flexible and open, because I think people are coming to us. Mayor, you may have more conversations than I do with people, but, you know, I'm happy to take anyone on a tour of Uptown if they visit our area. So please keep that in mind. I'd be a good selling person. So
Okay.
thank you. We appreciate everything your team has done, Anthony and Jim and Daphne. We look forward to adding you to the team, and thank you for the outreach you will do for regionally as well. And thanks for that.
Does anyone have any other questions of city staff on this?
Mm-mm.
None? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chettle, you had asked to speak on this.
So, Mayor, what would be the point of me speaking on this, right? I mean, I have questions. It's a legitimate agenda item. I'm a member of the public. I'm allowed to speak. I'm allowed to ask questions. But after what you said about me last time, I sat in your office for 50 minutes and walked you through legal documents identifying the violations of the lease. The Los Olas Marina lease is blatantly open, honest. Your city attorney has used those words. Technical default. The trip cap on the barrier island, blatant violation. The beach redevelopment, violation. The sound ordinance, blatant violation. So if you're saying that I'm spreading misinformation, what are you? Are you out of your mind? Are you kidding me?
Not out of my mind.
I'm a regular person. I'm
Agree with
stating
you,
facts
and
that
you are
I've met
spreading
with you.
misinformation.
I've showed you the documents.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your effort, but it's misinformation.
It's misinformation that you violated Article 26 of the Bahia Mar lease. The city has responded in 43 days of a public record request in writing identifying no financial responsibility was done, no due diligence was done, no business capability was done. There is no record of the start of the 30 days. There is no record of the end of the 30 days. Your city manager signed a legal document saying that you have approved or deemed to have approved a sublease on the marina and no record exists. That's not spreading misinformation. That's blatant. That's just fact. That's in black and white. So on this question, I was going to ask a very simple question of the vice mayor, because here she has spent many, many months on the Uptown master plan, and now there's this transition to the Uptown South master plan. And my question is very simple. Can somebody in the city, while you are anticipating the unsolicited proposal on the one-stop shop, can somebody please explain why do we go through months and months and months or over a year of work to solidify a master plan, put in all that time and effort, the public communication, the transparency, the disclosure, the constant thanking of staff for all the thousands of hours of work that they do, their expertise that they bring to the table, the lobbyist log, of which you've had over 400 lobbyist meetings, most of which have been on FXE, Lockhart, or this. You've spent an enormous amount of time. We articulate what it is that the plan is. Okay, well, 20 years ago, somebody did that for the downtown master plan, and they decided that we would have a one-stop shop, and that was going to be a park. And we've been waiting for a park. And ever since I've been involved, I've never been able to spend the time on this because there are
What
so many.
item are we on?
We're on the Uptown South master
I'm just
plan.
curious. I mean, I'm following my agenda.
We're on business one, but
Business
Mr.
one.
Chettle has a lot
I
to
can,
say.
I can give my thoughts. And
This
then
is
we
so.
can wrap up.
So, Vice Mayor, I will stop talking. Let me just respond to the.
But you will stop talking. Thank you very much.
So, Commissioner
Appreciate it.
McKenzie, I was
Yes, sir.
using this as an opportunity to ask the Vice Mayor.
You have
She
the
could maybe
opportunity to
articulate.
ask the vice mayor, once you make an appointment with her, she'd be very happy to discuss it. This is
I'm just-
this is not a debate session.
Just answering the.
This is called public comment. You have
Correct.
an opportunity to speak your mind, which you clearly have, and we appreciate your coming here and sharing your thoughts. But this is not a debate situation or a
understand.
conversation, and you know that.
I'm-
Please respect the format, and please respect the time of the public who's come here to hear the other matters as well. So, thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Moving on to business two. You're occupying our entire agenda.
Me?
Oh,
Lockhart Community Park.
You're looking at me though. Let me get out of the way.
Where are we on now?
Get
Yeah,
out.
Lockhart Park?
Lockhart Community Park discussion.
She's
Right.
back.
Back.
I'm
sorry
sure
I
you have a
missed
few
guys.
thoughts on this.
Yeah, maybe I could just, if I can quickly just lead real quick and then hand it right off to the vice mayor. We've been, as you know, multiple iterations of what is proposed on the south side of the Lockhart Park property up there by the airport. We're all very familiar with it. As you know, we've got large projects in each of the districts, and I just wanted to, we're at a point now where this one has really solidified itself into a true concept design that we'll start to then create buildable documents for, and just want to make sure that we have the commission's support to move forward with that, and thought that this was the easy format to allow the discussion to happen. So Vice Mayor, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. Are we showing anything? I see you over there. Or no, you just, okay, that's fine. I think I have an image. That's pickleball. I'm excited about that too. So I get to actually go next after this. But
Pickleball again?
no, let's focus. Okay, we're on Lockhart.
Pickleball.
Yeah, that's next. I do have an image, but just stay focused on Lockhart. So thank you, Chris, for that lead up. So you all know, basically we signed a comprehensive agreement about 2 years ago with Inter Miami. And so we have 1 year left in that comprehensive agreement. And that does state that Inter Miami will design, bid, and build the 20-acre park next to Inter Miami. And I believe now we've done 2 years of community outreach. We had AECOM do outreach during the pandemic, so it was virtual, but I've discussed this with my district still numerous times. I met with AECOM and Phil, and once again, my district recently showed the final plans. Actually showed it last night, too, at our District 1 meeting. So I believe we're ready to move forward, and I would like the commission to see it and maybe give direction. And I also would like, we've had some conversations, just so you know, about maybe who should build it. Should Inter Miami give us money and we build it, or should Inter Miami just build it? And my recommendation would be that Inter Miami just build it, because
They seem to do a good job.
they do a good job. They are a construction company. I think they can do it better, cheaper, faster than we can, especially cheaper and faster. And so I would like to kind of move forward, but maybe we should show the image.
Well,
of-
does
of
anyone
the-
else on the commission want to comment on this? This is a
Wonder-
proposal, and
Phil's Phil here.
let's start with District 2 then. Do you have
But
any
you
thoughts?
probably need to see it.
Yeah, I kind of, we just
See,
see what the
Erica, I don't know if
Vice
you're
Mayor wants to
listening,
tell
or
us.
Sorry.
Bill. I know, is it, oh, there it is. How'd that come up? Thank you. There it is. That's
It was
what I
in the-
showed
it was
last
in the
night.
backup. It was in the backup.
Oh, it was in the backup. You think I'd read my backup?
It was in the backup. It was an attachment to the item.
Okay, so good. Thank you all for looking at the backup. So
Just a little greener than what some.
a little greener, very, very green. Let me just walk you through it briefly. So right next to the stadium would be obviously 2 large soccer fields that can be cut up to 4 soccer fields. And what you see on the west portion, so up is west on this map, okay? So that's next to the airport.
Up is west, yeah.
Top is west. And that would be, maybe it could be a kickball field too. You could use it for a variety of purposes because it's kind of rectangular. We'd have some bathrooms to the west of that. That bathroom is not in the comprehensive agreement, just so you know. So we might have to figure that one out or pay for it. There's also mechanicals up there. That is in the comprehensive agreement. Okay, so you come down. You see number 4 and 3, those are playgrounds. You see at sales, which are basically shade structures, but underneath of that, that would be a large playground. Next to that, circled in red or purple, whatever color that is that's the part that the city of Fort Lauderdale is responsible for design, bid, build, pay for. Okay, so that's the community center and splash pad. That was not in the original comprehensive agreement, so we are responsible for that. So my suggestion is just to make that grass for now and let Inter Miami come in and do their work. That would just be grass. And then when we're ready, we will come back and build that. I'm going to tour Full Sails University in August. I know Chris is also looking at the space, and I've asked Zoe to look at it as well. We're looking at the esports arena there to see if it would be a good fit for the second floor of this community center. I believe that it would. So just please know that that's something that we're researching and looking into also. We'll bring back a more definite plan after the commission break. So the bottom floor of the community center would just be a community center, obviously with use for the public. Just to the west of that, you see more sales. Those are splash pads. The splash pads can be shut off and used for a concert or something at night. So it could be a splash pad during the day, and that could be a small concert venue at night with the passive space around it. And then we basically have 2 dog parks. for commercial, and then there's a lot of parking, which is good. We've talked about, making sure that food trucks can come and park here and plug in, maybe have some permanent electricity and outlets there so food trucks can operate. So that would probably be the food service out there, would just be food trucks and concerts and just a lot of passive space, as well as some more structured, your soccer, kickball, football, whatever you want on that additional space. So this plan really hasn't changed much since I've started this process 2 years ago. EDSA was originally working on it. We turned it over to AECOM, and the plan really hasn't deviated too much. And my district has been happy, and the neighborhoods that I presented to also have been happy with it since the beginning. So the community center will be fleshed out later. We are not deciding on that today. That's a separate project at a separate time. So if you have any ideas or thoughts, we can discuss those later. Today it would really be, does this work, this park? And if so, do we want to, ask Inter Miami to move forward? Right now, they are currently using it for parking, and I'm happy that they can use it for now. I don't know when their season's probably over, isn't it? It's not over.
No, it goes through October.
It goes through October. So it'd be great maybe if they can start in October. That would be reasonable. So what do y'all think?
Okay.
Hello? So it's basically the same thing from before?
It's the same thing. I've gone over it, a lot of meetings.
And why are we bringing it up today? I'm just trying to figure out why are we dealing with it
So
today?
the decision we need to make today, what's kind of happening is we've had some conversations. We need to build it, and we need to decide how we're building it and who's building it and when it's being built. I would like it to be built, like our comprehensive agreement says, within 3 years. That's what we said on the comprehensive agreement. Initially, when I first saw the comprehensive agreement, I thought 3 years is a really long time. I thought we should build it all at the same time as the stadium. That didn't work for, I don't know, I forget really why it didn't work back then, but it didn't. So I said, okay, I'll go to 3 years if that's what you recommend, but I really wanted it to be built within 3 years. And we need to decide now, because if we don't start design, bid, build, it's not going to be here in 3 years. So that's what you all need to give direction. Should we?
So is the deal that they're going to build it?
That's what our comprehensive agreement says.
So, which I understood all this, and I recommended way back then we do everything right out the gates. But,
Yeah.
it was your negotiations that said we had 3 years to get here. But we're here. And you mentioned some of the programming of this site, which I'm going to ask the same questions I asked a couple years ago, which was, if we turned off the splash pad and we had a concert there, how does that impact what's going on the rest of the campus? If we had a public event there, you know that?
You asking me? Who
Whoever
you
can answer it.
I can. What?
'Cause I mean, you mentioned that we can have concerts there, and I was one of the ones that wanted.
There are two types of concerts we're talking about. One type of concert is we get to use Inter Miami's 18,000 seat stadium 4 times a year for events. I was looking at the comprehensive agreement, and I don't specifically see concerts written down as a use, but I don't know if the comprehensive agreement is complete, if we can add uses, or
Right, which is why I'm asking this question, because
you want something
even
big.
with both of those, no, you can go back to the stadium, and we got 4 agreed to by the
Inter Miami.
Inter Miami, and then when we go to utilize those dates, I guarantee somebody else has already programmed them, because it's a great venue and a great place. So if we didn't have a public purpose 2 years ago to take those 4 spots a year, I guarantee we missed that opportunity. So here we are again, talking about a smaller venue for concerts. And I want to know how that works for me in my city this time around.
Yeah. So I'm thinking when, and Stephanie, I'll let you go in a second, but I'm thinking the concert off of the porch at the community center.
Not
You're not talking about the small.
This whole site.
So, okay, well,
We
let's,
can have public venues according to what we negotiated. So what I'm saying now is, and I'm trying to bring clarity to you, is when we move down this road, are we going to have full control of this site and we can bring our concerts in? And how would that impact what's already programmed on the property?
Yeah. Well, we don't have anything programmed at Inner Miami side. So the 40 acres, we don't have anything programmed.
That's not necessarily true.
Not the 4 uses. We have the high school football field
Right.
on the other side. And yes, they're allowed to use that for the high school football
Right.
activities. So that's public.
Right.
We have 4 uses. Am I correct, Stephanie? It was 4? Yeah. Okay. We have 4 uses at the large stadium for you all to come up with ideas.
Which I think are probably already gone at this time based on
Not-
what a great venue it is. I'm just saying, this is just me talking.
I don't think.
But that's
they've
why
been
I'm asking this question, because I want clarity from
Yeah.
whoever can answer the question.
I've been asking for
Me too,
them.
because I got some ideas.
Okay.
However, here's our second opportunity to do it. And I really want to make sure, we can do whatever it is we think we can do and not come back 3 years from now and say we can't do it. Or we can't. She's probably going to tell us we can do it.
Well, the 20 acres will be 100% programmed and operated by the city of Fort Lauderdale.
Okay, that's what I want to hear.
100%. So we can have whatever we want.
That's the answer to my question.
Whatever Phil wants to do, out there, we can do. Whether it's like the Friday night
Tunes
Friday night waves.
So that answers my question.
Yeah, sound waves. Okay, and then what? Holiday Park has concerts. It'll be something similar, but it'll be in District 1.
Yeah, but Holiday Park and other places, we control 365 days out of the year.
We control this 365 days.
That's what I wanted to hear.
24/7, 365, 100%.
Right, so just to bring some
Yeah.
focus to this, it appears from the diagram that we've been seeing that most of this is just a lot of defined open space. It still remains as open space. There's parks, it's basically open space except for the area that's defined by the purple dotted area, which we're going to leave alone right now. So, but the rest of it, I think it makes sense to strike while the iron is hot and let Inter Miami proceed with the development of this site the way you've designed it, and then should there be some sort of important change that needs to be made, at least we're not putting anything so permanently affixed to the site that it can't be redone. So. I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, there are most of the people that live near here, I mean, they either live in Oakland Park or in
Come
Hammer.
east, Mayor. Come east. I'm not 9 minutes. Jeff,
Tamarack.
What's east?
tell them how close you are.
What's
Jeff,
east? Who lives east?
Yeah.
Orange Isles, Imperial Point.
No, but it's important. It's important.
And I'm sorry, stay west. You have Twin Lakes. You have
I know.
you have
But
Palm Air.
the point is, I think having the sports fields available, putting a dog park, all of this, I really think
You're going to drive here because it's going to be so amazing.
it'll be a
People will
destination.
drive
It'll be a
15 minutes
destination. I
from
get that.
your neighborhood.
I get that.
Yeah.
So
Steve, you
I
will
I
too?
would have no objection to this. If this is the vision of the community, I have no objection to this. I don't know what the
Okay.
rest of the commission thinks, but
I want to talk about 3 items that are not included in the master plan that we may need a little bit of clarification.
For this?
We never specified, Stephanie, when I went back and looked, lighting, landscaping, like what degree of maturity would the landscaping be? And something I was also thinking of. Let's just discuss making sure that the fields are turf also. The soccer fields are turf. I know Phil and I, we discussed it. I don't believe it says turf in the comprehensive agreement either, but I know we discussed it 20 times, right, Phil? At least, yeah. So, and I believe every time we discussed it, Inter Miami was agreeable to that idea, but it's not written down in the master plan. So we don't have lighting, landscaping, kind of, what degree. I know there's a big difference, and I'm not saying it has to be, totally mature and fabulous out of the get-go, but maybe halfway there. I know Elsie's here from the Galt, and I know she got, when we didn't have mature landscaping on 33rd Street, that I got a lot of feedback from that. So it is something that it is nice if we can get it, kind of full. So
what portion? So is the city responsible for lighting and landscaping?
well, it's not in the comprehensive agreement, but when we discussed it initially, Inter Miami was paying for it. But it's not in the comprehensive agreement, so that could be an
They're not going to
item.
pay for it if it's not in the agreement. Then
Well, so what do you think, Stephanie?
The agreement specifies, just for clarity, the community site improvements that were contemplated, or at least provided within the comprehensive agreement, was the construction of a running and walking trail, public park, playground, dog park, public fields, and a field maintenance building on the community site. The turf aspect of that I recall, and I still have to go through to that section, but I think in the comprehensive agreement, there was agreement on the turf for the football field.
Correct.
On the the north side
Correct.
for the football field. That was agreed upon.
That's correct.
Well, that was included in the comprehensive agreement, and shame on me for not reading it more closely. I remember specifically sitting in North Carolina when I got this first copy 3 years ago, and I remember how I felt about a few of the things in it at the time, specifically knowing that this would come up and be a problem because they weren't included in this initial comprehensive agreement. So I do have notes of my conversations, and I did have a lot of staff there at the time, and every time we discussed it, but I knew it would come up and be a problem because it wasn't clearly written in the comprehensive agreement. So what do we do moving forward?
Well, if it's not in the agreement, is this now going to obligate the city to come up with the millions of dollars that's going to be necessary to put in the landscaping and the lighting? That's my concern.
Well, our notes and our meeting agenda notes, like legally binding? No. Okay.
So if we put
Sorry,
so
trying.
so Alan, you just mentioned a list of things that they agreed to, right? So if it's a park, when we build parks, aren't our criterias will give us some of those things like lighting, landscape, what we have to do?
Putting lighting aside for the moment, I think landscaping is something reasonable, and I don't think it's
No, but what I'm saying is,
we
if
disagree
we go forward to say, hey, we want to do a park, we got to put landscaping and lighting as a part of our requirements.
Is that the definition of a park, landscaping? And
I
lighting?
think it
Mr.
does.
Travers, because if I
When you get to lighting, it gets, and I'm not saying it's not, but obviously trees are, to the vice mayor's point, the maturity of those trees is not defined, obviously. So there's a lot of
but
latitude.
our own ordinance or code says a minimum requirement. Am I correct?
Of course, and they have to follow the code. Absolutely.
That's what I'm saying.
Right,
That's
right.
what I'm asking.
Right.
Not
And for
what I
security
want.
reasons and things of that sort, I'm sure there's a lighting component as well. And Anthony may have to speak to that, or Phil. I'm sure there's some component there. Although back in the day, there were discussions about because.
So it's safe to say, because you're doing a lot of talking.
Yes.
I just want to know yes or no or the answer. It's safe to say that we were going to get landscaping. May not be mature, but it may be the minimum requirement.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What about lighting?
Lighting is not specifically listed, but I believe again per code.
Don't believe. Do we get lighting when we get a park according to our requirements? That's all I'm asking.
According to our requirements, I would have to defer to Parks and Rec or
DSD.
DSD, yeah.
Who can answer that question?
And we'd have to defer also to the FAA because there's some
I
restrictions.
need all that. I want to answer. If we get a park, we agree to a park, but when we go to get a park,
Right.
are these things our minimum requirements? If they are, we're going to get lighting, we're going to get planting, or plants or trees. May not be mature, but we meet the minimum requirements. I just want to know the answer so I can.
And I do know the lights, because I've gone over the FAA stuff enough. There are different heights based on where they are in the property, based on
But I'm not talking about height. I'm talking about, do we get lights?
Okay, so
Minimum
just like-
requirements.
Let Anthony speak to it.
Anthony.
Anthony has
Bill.
come to bail us out.
So there's a lighting requirement, there's a minimum lighting requirement for parking lots. I don't have a minimum lighting requirement in the ULDR for park space.
Thank you for the answer I was looking for.
So back to my point, then we're going to be responsible for lighting then.
Well,
But the-
are we, or can we ask Inter Miami? I mean,
Well, we could
every
ask them, but I mean,
yeah, but every time I've been asked anything from Inter Miami, I said yes. I mean,
Well,
it started
maybe
at it's 24 acres. It
convincing
went to
again
40
and,
acres. I mean, I remember.
And so I think Inter Miami would be very reasonable in their response. So if Stephanie's
Sorry,
here
Stephanie.
representing them,
I
let's.
don't know if you have the
I don't think
answers
Stephanie
yet,
can
Stephanie, but
But I think if we let somebody talk, like that, I just want to know those two answers. So now we know clearly that we get the park with no lights. We know that. We're getting landscape. So now it goes back to what you're asking or what you're struggling with in terms of why you're frustrated, according to your own words. That's why we're here tonight with this on our agenda to ask of certain things, which the mayor alluded to. That if they didn't agree to it, they're not obligated, but they might do what they've been doing with us the whole time, which is giving us a lot of things along the way. But then if not, the city's got to figure out how do we get there. Am I correct?
Yeah, I think that's a good summary. And just keep in mind as well that we do have this dotted red area to construct, but to the extent we want to add or enhance or make better, what would be in addition to what was in the comprehensive agreement. We have a significant amount of park bond funds set aside for this park. So, it is certainly something that we could take a standard and increase it if you want to increase it, or if we want better lights or different lights. We certainly.
Some light.
It's gonna be some lights now, not better lights, because we have no lights according to the requirements.
Some lights around the walking trails and
we can get.
and stuff. Let's see if Inter Miami will.
That's
us-
different.
Let's see
Right,
if
so-
they'll
so-
give us some lights.
All right, so look, let's see what we can agree to today and
Yeah.
what needs to be
get it.
studied further. So we can agree that we want to move forward on the development of this site. We can agree that we want to ask Inter Miami to proceed with the development of the site. We can agree that the site plan that's being presented to us is reasonable and fair and is suitable for the purposes for which we had previously discussed and that would serve the public need. And we can also agree that we will determine at some later point whether lighting is a city requirement or something that the developer could do on our behalf. Are we agreeable to all those things so far?
Yes, and AECom has been working on this, so AECom may need to pass it off to whomever from Inter Miami. So those are details we can work out later. But yes, I think that summarizes it well. Like I said, I knew those three elements that I know aren't in the comprehensive agreement. We just need to figure out or agree on or decide
Okay.
who's paying for it.
Mayor, I just had a question, and maybe I'm being naive, but Vice Mayor, what's the reason why? I mean, the stadium was built like overnight. And
Yes.
So what's the reason that this wasn't moving along concurrently?
Well, there probably were a few reasons, but the number one reason I believe was we probably just said we needed more community input. We had not done any community outreach at the point where we decided to do this because it happened so quickly. And so I just don't think there was enough time to get the community outreach and develop just what the community wanted. So Chris, do you have any more details or recollection about this? Why we didn't do it all at the same time? Because I know we talked about it a lot.
Right. So, it was always intended to be from the very beginning the phased approach where we would do the north part of the site, phase into the south part of the site.
Right.
If you recall, take you back to, 2 days before the opening home game and the world shut down for COVID. And then we decided we wanted a community center and that altered it. And then we changed that to, do we want a pool? Do we not want a pool? Do we want a splash pad? Not a splash pad? It kept changing.
Yeah. So
And as it changed along the way and we gathered the additional community input, it just didn't make sense for the construction team to stay mobilized on the site. It was just way too expensive. So at that point, we did have the discussion with Inter Miami and said, if we were to take this on from a planning perspective to make sure that we all got what we wanted as a community, that we could take that straight to design, straight to construction documents, straight to construction like we would any other city park. And so that we pivoted to that path, and that's sort of the path we're on right now. So if we're going to go back to giving it back
I
to
don't
Inter
think we
Miami.
ever said the city was necessarily going to pay for it. What happened at the
That's correct.
beginning
That-
is
that is correct.
I worked with, along with the community, I worked with their team. I worked with EDSA and Manica. I don't know if you remember Manica also, who designed their stadium. They said, just work with our team to come up, do the community outreach and come up with what you think. And so basically that's what I did for the first year until everything happened. And so it was really EDSA and Manica who kind of did the initial design work based on the community outreach. And at that point, that was all paid for by Inter Miami. Maybe Manica was paid for by us. So then we got to the point, so it was never really my understanding that we were going to design, bid, build, and pay. I was just using their designers because we didn't have AECom on board at that point.
Okay, so let us clarify that at some point. We're not going to be able to do that tonight or this afternoon rather. So I want to continue with the meeting. So let's.
Mayor, I just had one more question because I'm just concerned. Now, this site, the south, has been used for parking, right, for this stadium.
Currently, yes.
What happens in the future? Unless this is a silly question, help educate me. But what happens? Where are people going to be parking once we do develop this site?
That's up to Inter Miami. There, if the games are on the weekend, there are 200 businesses around there with parking garages.
Okay.
that don't use the parking garages on the weekend. So that would be my suggestion.
Well, I think that they knew that that was going to be a
Yeah.
temporary situation.
Well, the more you read, it doesn't look like it's that temporary anymore. I mean, you
Well,
keep
No,
reading
no,
about.
the use of this site as parking was always anticipated.
Oh, you're
to
talking
be a
about the
temporary
parking.
situation.
Okay, I was just wondering though, going down the road, what's going to happen? It seems to me like that-
It is, so I think it'd be great if we had some kind of transportation connected from Brightline to Lockhart Park. That would be another solution I'd come up with. Once again, you have Tri-Rail, some shuttles. I mean, they have to come up with something, but I don't think that's really up to us to even think
Okay.
about, really, honestly.
Okay.
But so my suggestion would be we just move forward with Inter Miami, continuing the design, because this is obviously the preliminary design. They have to go to complete design with whomever they choose to work with. And then we probably need to see a little bit more official renderings. We had some disagreements at one point about the playground. When I suggested one playground, they suggested maybe that's too extensive. So we probably need to look at the final details of this plan one more time. And I guess Inter Miami should take that over, bring us back a detailed plan. What will the playground look like? What will the fields be made out of? You know, turf versus, I can tell you, Phil and I, every conversation we had, we said we want turf on all these fields, but I know it's not in the comprehensive agreement. So once again,
Okay.
So, and
But-
Inter
Vice Mayor-
Miami is ready to go, Stephanie, with this park. I mean, I just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page here and they're ready to continue the design and build the park.
Good afternoon, Stephanie Toothaker on behalf of Miami Beckham United. I want to state for the record, we are unequivocally committed to living up to the commitments that we made when we submitted the unsolicited proposal. I think just to be clear, we were asked to step aside when the city hired AECom. So our original team, when we had originally done this proposal, our idea was that we would build everything all at once. And obviously you get economies of scale when you do that. We had our team involved. We had Lamartec, Moss, we had EDSA, we had Flynn, we had our whole team in place, Manica. When AECom was hired by the city, they put us on pause, which is fine. And the community outreach was the right thing to do, certainly. There are some questions about, certain things. I don't have the authority. I mean, Jorge Moss would have to be here to make some of those commitments, the things you're asking for, like lighting and things of those sort, because we don't know what those look like. We don't know what those costs are. I will tell you, I do know that our preference would be to sit down with the city, with your professionals, determine what the value of that would have been at the time if we had built it at that time, and to just let the city handle it. That would be our preference, to not build it ourselves. There's a cost to building it that we are obviously obligated for, but our preference would be for the city to build it, for the city to go through their process. There's still a lot, in my opinion, up in the air, but I think that's a conversation. I mean, I can certainly bring the principals here. I can bring Jorge Mas and Pablo Alvarez, and we can have that discussion in an open forum where we can, make commitments to make sure that we're coming to the table with all the obligations that we made. And we are, as I said, unequivocally committed to the commitments that we made. There is no question. It is our preference not to personally build it anymore because our team is gone. We don't even have, we could reassemble everybody, of course, but they've demobilized. They're not there anymore.
well, the good news is the comprehensive agreement does state that you would build our side within 3 years. So it didn't necessarily say that we had to build it right then. And so the 3 years
Yes,
was
of course.
put into the comprehensive agreement, probably because we knew it wasn't going to be built then. So we do have that in writing, and that we did all agree to that and sign it. It is my desire to have Inter Miami continue with the design bid build and have it completed by the time our comprehensive agreement says it will be done, which is July next year.
Vice Mayor, just so I understand some of the basics of this, it sounds like we've looked at doing design build, bid build ourselves and ultimately having
Not really, Ben. I never supported that.
Okay, I'm just wondering what's the downside of us, so we don't have a middle person involved and we just do it and Inter Miami writes us a check.
Yeah, because it'll cost twice as much and take twice as long. That's the downside, and that's why we enter into P3s with everybody else in the city, because they can do it better, cheaper, faster. So for us to do it, twice as much, twice as long.
Okay, I agree with that.
Okay.
So, can I help?
Yeah, go ahead.
And maybe
So
it's not twice. I
How
could be-
did we?
Sorry,
How did we shift gears? I mean, how did we get?
I'm not shifting gears.
No,
I'm moving forward.
no. You gotta listen. If you, I'm trying to understand what you're doing because we started out with Intra Miami, then all of a sudden this other group came in, ACOM. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Who are they?
It's the consulting firm that we
Yeah,
hired.
but how
to
did they?
manage our
How
parks.
did Intra Miami give us them? How did we get to them?
We got to AECOM because they're managing our parks bond, and this Lockhart Park was a
Okay.
parks bond project.
And then ACOM kind of took it and went the distance, and now we're realizing we're not gonna.
Well, there's an overall park plan, and then there's the community center. The problem is the community center is up to us.
Oh.
So that's why AECOM got involved, because one person needed to understand what's happening on the whole property. And then we do need to split it up again and give it back to Inter Miami to at least do their part. So, but EDSA was Inter Miami's team, and they were the ones that really did the exact same design work from the beginning. That was Inter Miami's team. So we were moving forward with Inter Miami and their team until we hired a project manager. And at that point, we said, well, let's have AECOM just take it over. But I don't think I ever understood it meant we were going to take it over as a design bid build. It was just take it over to get the whole design, the initial design. Because this is what, 10%, 20%, 30%? This is early design. This isn't. So we just were doing that just to get you all to say, yes, conceptually I like this, but it was never the final design work. It was just someone to come up with the initial picture to bring back to you all to approve. Now we need to give it back to the people who are going to finish it. So this is basically the exact same thing you saw from EDSA a couple of years ago, which was Inter Miami's team. We stopped for a year and a half because of the pandemic. Obviously, I would never ask Inter Miami to build our park the day after, or even 3 months after they had to shut down their whole first season. You know, we're bringing this up now because their season started again. They're going again, and technically, the comprehensive agreement says they have to do it by next year. I don't want to sit here at the end of next year and all of a sudden say we're in default. The city is in default of the comprehensive agreement because we're delaying it. I mean, just like Stephanie just said right now, you know, they were, you know, maybe asked to step aside or whatever. I never want this to come back at you know, August 1st next year and say, well, you told us to stop. And so now we are in default of everything we agreed to in this comprehensive agreement. So if we don't move forward now, we as a city will be in default of this agreement. And I don't want us to be the ones holding this up.
I agree. All right, so let us,
Do you have any, before we move on, do you have anything you'd like to weigh in on? Because I don't
Yeah,
want
I
to
would
see us
love
in
to.
default either.
I would
but-
like to hear those next steps because I'm also hearing now that Inter Miami isn't thrilled about building this. So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page and we know what our next steps are.
Well, there's obviously the comprehensive agreement was written pre-pandemic, and lots of things have happened since then, both with that and the community center. You know, I don't want to opine too much publicly, but I think it merits a conversation. I don't know that we just need to sit down with Inter Miami and try to come with something.
We've been saying that for 6 months, Alan. That's why we're here as a commission right now discussing this, because I've been trying to work on this behind the scenes. I've been trying to get the dollar amount of how much we would be. I've been trying to get all this for literally months, and I've gotten nothing. So we need to discuss this publicly and let the commission know what's happening.
Well, I would just advise against taking a hard line.
You would do what now?
I would advise against taking a hard line on the comprehensive agreement and saying you have to do exactly what it says in there. Because I think we're partly to blame with some of the delay that's occurred.
Chris.
And I'll leave it.
I disagree with that. I disagree that we're to blame.
but we're at this point now. We're at this point where we have a preliminary design, and I think there's a consensus to move forward with the preliminary.
And that's fine, but
We're good with that, right?
right.
Okay, so now the question is, you're saying, what are next steps? Next steps are to go back to Inter Miami and to define what their role is and what our role is, with the understanding that it was their original role was to build this on their dime, and my recollection is the only reason why we delayed this was, number one, they wanted the parking.
Yes.
And number two, COVID came around and we kind of stopped everything, and it worked for everybody at the time. Now that we're emerging from the pandemic, And now that there's an opportunity to move forward on this, on the development of this site, I do think it's appropriate now to, I'm not saying go hard on the comprehensive agreement, but I think we need to resume whatever we started a year and a half ago.
And that's fine, and we can, and the next step may be presenting that to the team leadership. Although we did at some point bring ACOM, and we did insert the community center, and we did go for community output. That wasn't contemplated in the comprehensive agreement.
Community center is in the
delay.
comprehensive agreement.
It's, excuse me?
Community center is in the comprehensive agreement. It's in the comprehensive
What
agreement.
section? I looked at it. And
Well, but it's not in this. It's not in this design, though.
Yeah,
No.
hold on.
Doesn't
But we're not
matter.
talking about the community center now, are we?
No, we're not.
no, we're not. But
We're
the thing
carving
is,
that out. We're carving that out. We're just talking about everything around.
Because I would like to at some point talk about
At
it.
some point,
That's-
yes, but not tonight.
Okay, no problem.
candidly, at some point when that issue came up and we had discussions with EDSA at the time, that they didn't want to go through, or collectively, we didn't want to go through and build these parks, and then all of a sudden now tramps all over them and destroy them by building a community center. So there was an attempt at coordination at that point in time. When ACOM came in and EDSA left the picture, they started doing their work, and essentially it was never contemplated in a comprehensive agreement that we were going to design a park. We certainly had input, obviously, but that we were going to design it. So there was a lot of back and forth in that regards, which did take some time.
Okay.
And then
that's fine.
COVID, right.
We're at
So,
this point
right,
now,
great.
and
And
let's move forward.
Right.
And I think we can. And so, to the vice mayor's suggestion, let us take this to the next step, and we empower you to go continue your discussions with Inter Miami and move forward and see how we can have this make this happen.
well, we have clear direction from the commission now. So we'll present that to Inter Miami, and then we'll see what the response is, and we'll try to work that out and report back.
Okay.
Okay, you say you have clear direction, so make me understand what clear direction you have, because I don't have a clear understanding of what we're doing.
My understanding, and perhaps
don't
you
either,
need to
so I'm
discuss it
listening.
more, but my understanding is, as the mayor just summarized it, that we want Inter Miami to build it rather than us build it, that to the extent that it's required under the comprehensive agreement, that we want lighting included, obviously landscaping included, and that I believe the vice mayor had mentioned that it needed to be by the time the comprehensive agreement contemplates, which I don't have the date certain, but it was within the 3-year period.
Question,
That's my
Alan.
understanding.
Alan, are there any condos there?
Not allowed to under the FAA
yet.
regulations.
Not yet.
Yeah, just check.
Thank you.
Could be.
I've already checked.
Quiet, you.
Yes. I'm sorry, just for the record, when I said the community center was included, I meant included like they're not doing it.
Oh, right.
Yes,
Yeah.
not that they're building it, but
Right.
yes, there
Yeah,
could
that
be a
was never
community
included.
center. They are just not responsible for it, and
Right.
that's why we did separate the two. But once again, just because I am particularly sensitive about the community, the city not breaking this agreement, we just need to move forward and let them do it. And also because we are really researching, and it is taking a little bit more time, the best use for the community center. And I think we have a lot of really great opportunities, but that's going to take a couple years. And I'm okay with that, but we do have great people working on it. We're going to bring you all an update in September of what some things we're talking about for the community center. But just because I want us to be, in agreement with this comprehensive agreement, let's just let them do exactly what they said. I'm not asking for anything else, except I would like lighting and trees. But if they don't want to do that, we'll use the bond money. I'm not stuck on it, but we just need to move forward and start it when their season's over. I think that's reasonable. They can keep parking, and that'll give us a couple months to get the final design back to us, maybe the beginning of October to get the final design, and then they can start building. We know they can build. We're not going to say it
Okay.
has to be done overnight like the stadium, but in a reasonable amount of time.
Okay. All right. All right. Are we good on this now? Okay.
I'm still not clear. What has AECOM done at this point in the last 2.5 years on this site specifically?
They weren't hired 2.5 years ago. They were just hired a couple months ago.
In the last 2.5 years in totality, what has AECOM done on this site, if anything?
I'll have to let Phil.
Mm,
Lot,
Not
Commissioner.
much, Ben, because they were just hired.
Brought on late in the game.
We just transitioned from, so EDSA was the one who originally designed all this, and that that was Inter Miami's team.
Okay.
So they designed this kind of whole parcel
Right.
together. So you can speak, Phil. AECOM was just hired, and then they just basically
So nothing.
January, February, not
Then
much.
Nothing.
They just took
Okay.
EDSA's design and put it on their letterhead.
And then we hired
I shouldn't say
we
that.
hired
They did.
Manica, just to be clear. So we hired Manica, who was the architectural firm that Inter Miami was using, and then we hired them to consult on the community
building.
center.
So they gave us
Okay.
some sketches of the building, and we talked about programmatically and stuff. But with AECOM on board, we are no longer using Manica or EDSA. But now that we're going to separate it, the city will keep using AECOM for the community center. Inter Miami can use whoever they want for
Mhm.
their portion.
Mhm.
We won't oversee that at all, except here's what the community has agreed to, which was the same a year and a half ago. Phil,
Okay.
sorry. What was your question,
No, I
Ben?
just was going to state, just as stated, AECOM is mainly used to kind of transition from EDSA and Manica and bring in the community input. So we look to them to try to pull all that together with the community input and then come up with this conceptual, which is where we're at today.
Okay. So AECOM helped come up with the conceptual. Okay. Great. I just want to understand the status of all those players. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Great.
We'll move on to business 3, marketing initiatives for the city of Fort Lauderdale. Chris?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This item I will introduce Sarah Spurlock and Daphne. I don't know who's going to lead, or Daphne's going to go first, and then we'll turn it over to Sarah. This, just by way of a quick introduction, Commission, as you recall, we had a presentation, gosh, I can't even tell you when it was more than a year ago now, where we talked about the city being a 24-hour city, and the reaction that we got from the Commission is we're not really think we're a 24-hour city at this point. And so this is in response to that, bringing back what we thought we took away from that discussion, which was we are a city, we're an urban downtown that wants to continue to have a good, positive environment, but we're just not 24 hours. So we brought back this concept of 18, and we'll see how you react to that, and then we'll go from there. So Daphne will start, and then Sarah will take it next.
All right. Let's see if I can get it right now. Can everybody hear me? Okay. There's a small echo. Okay. So I know we are doing marketing incentives for the city of Fort Lauderdale with economic development. I wanted to start off the presentation with a brief video, if it works. Let's see. There we go. Or not. Technical difficulties. Is there a reason why the video is not playing? And this was something I created in conjunction with our consultant, economic development as a whole for the city of Fort Lauderdale to showcase what we have. That's mine on PowerPoint. Yeah.
Fort Lauderdale, geographically positioned in the center of the region's population, is a city with a reputation for being both a paradise and an international business destination. Great locations and smart incentives for new and expanding businesses. One of the largest and most diverse multilingual labor forces in Florida, tax refund incentives, and a direct cash incentive. Fort Lauderdale is internationally recognized in key businesses, economic sustainability, and quality of life measures. A city where you can work in the sunrise and live in the sunset. Come discover why Fort Lauderdale is the destination to expand in today's highly competitive global market.
All All right, so that was one video that we wanted to do to showcase what Fort Lauderdale was about, or is about, in a very calming manner that would be distributed nationwide throughout states doing targeted digital marketing. I know previously the commission had discussed taglines, something that we could remember. Live, work, play has always been something that called to me growing up. When I look at Fort Lauderdale, aside from Venice of the Americas, yachting capital of the world, but I wanted to take a play on that and add the word invest, to live, work, play, invest in the city, in the community, and in its people. By adding this, we make clear that we want what we want the business community to do and what we will do for them. So through the alliance relationship that we have attracted our targeted industries that are listed: aviation, life sciences, global logistics, financial services, the marine industry, manufacturing, technology, and headquarters. But what economic development is about is to bolster and support those alliance targeted industry initiatives, but our job mainly as a city is to attract, retain, and grow businesses by focusing on education, innovation incentives, incubators, and accelerators, like collaborating with the Allen B. Levine NSU Innovation Center, Broward College, to collaborate with futuristic thinkers when it comes to startups within cryptocurrency, EV, drone technology, and to strengthen our workforce by intensifying and investing in meaningful partnerships to continue building a premier workforce. So by doing this, we can bolster our reputation, allowing for those industry leaders to see Fort Lauderdale as a more attractive place to move and to work. Some current incentives that we have is the direct cash incentive and CRA incentives. And I know with CRAs phasing out, it's more difficult to use that as a pool of money for incoming businesses. The direct cash incentive is something that we don't provide on the front end, but we provide on the back end as soon as companies show that they have hired 10 or more employees at above higher average wages within the county. My proposal is to invest, and this is looking at other cities and other states like Ohio, other cities like Daytona, is to have a large business loan program, a small and home-based business grant program, business loyalty programs, venture programs, and a Fort Lauderdale, Florida, Israeli business accelerator and incubator. So the large business loan grant program in a nutshell is for new projects, expansion, on relocating of existing businesses with the minimum payroll of what an agreed to amount is by the city commission. And it would attract and retain professional businesses. The venture program is something that, in listening to today's conversation, can be used for possible Uptown projects. So it's city-initiated development concepts. And the primary goal of the venture program is to promote or create conditions that encourage attracting professional businesses. Signage, amenities, code requirements, everything that a business needs for starting up. So focusing on those startups. And a small and home business grant program, home-based businesses that employ less than 10, those grants would be specific. Again, everything would be what is agreed to by the commission. An accelerator and an incubator program to establish a cooperative effort with the Chamber, Broward College, the Alliance, FIBA, and other partner organizations that want to be a part of the incubator. And the business loyalty program are for businesses who are in good standing with the city for at least 3 years by making timely payments of local business tax receipts, or their business tax, their certificates of use, no code violations, and then a percentage of future local business taxes could be waived. And that is a concept that I saw from Daytona. And these proposed initiatives would be funded by creating and funding an economic development trust fund, in which we would apply for grants from the Small Business Administration and the Economic Development Administration, as well as community grants by working in conjunction with the Urban League and other chambers of commerce in the Alliance. So we have a strong business ecosystem, and this is where we get into marketing that strong business ecosystem. We have more than 18,000 registered businesses, and we need to aggressively promote our local businesses via social media, radio, TV, print, and utilize the Broward Workshop and the Alliance more, as well as internally with our Strategic Communications Department. So I have one last video that we did with the mayor in focusing on tech.
I'm Dean Trantalis, the mayor of the city of Fort Lauderdale, and I want to invite you to the Venice of America, our country's choice for working in the cloud and living in the sun. The city of Fort Lauderdale is geographically centered in the very heart of South Florida. The unique positioning of our city makes it a strategic choice for technology, startups, tech professionals, and tech hubs in order to flourish. Many technology firms have already called Fort Lauderdale their home. Organizations such as Hotwire, Citrix, Akamai, Motorola, Microsoft are just some of the few organizations that have physical presence here in our city. We also support Tech Lauderdale because we believe in innovation and making sure we secure a strong, diverse, thriving, and connected community. Your growth is key to our economic growth and prosperity.
I think I had the most fun doing that one. So, some next steps, and then I promise I will wrap this up. So, marketing the Fort Lauderdale brand is something we need to do. Presence is everything. Using targeted digital marketing throughout the U.S., beta testing a Fort Lauderdale Business Ambassador Program. Who better than our existing businesses to promote Fort Lauderdale? So by using word of mouth, branding opportunities, giveaways, contests, something fun, something that everybody can get on board with, is how we can brand Fort Lauderdale differently than Miami and West Palm to bring in not only large businesses, but to grow our existing startups and entrepreneurs here within the city. We can also use our Economic Development Advisory Board. Those members can be used as our ambassadors. They're here, they're willing, able, and they want to do something to help. And to use our sister city relationships to promote international relationships, monetize innovation, and provide unique educational opportunities. We're not utilizing our international capabilities and relationships enough, and that's something that will make us more aggressive in growing our brand. Hosting business summits for private for-profit industries, nonprofit micro-businesses, and entrepreneurs. I think summits are essential into garnishing and gathering information to see what business resources we can provide. And hosting business listening tours. Every once in a while, I believe you have to, hit the ground running, show your face, see what our business community actually needs and wants. We can guess all day, we can say what we want, but at the end of the day, what does that business community want? When you're looking at someone face to face, that's how you know what they really need. And broadband infrastructure. So to maintain a competitive advantage, we need to become a smart city. And by investing in our broadband infrastructure, that's how we're gonna propel the city forward, especially when we're looking at EV tech, and EV is electric vehicles. So bringing the Teslas to Fort Lauderdale, bringing that cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, we really need to invest in our broadband, especially if we're thinking about park concepts. If you want families to walk through the park and have Wi-Fi and cell service, that's important in becoming a smart city. And we have our Business Engagement Assistant Mentorship Program, fondly called BEAMS. It's a webinar, it's a 3-course module that we're looking to expand for those educational opportunities that I talked about before. Having accredited certificate programs, working with Broward College, working with NSU in various industries, and we can become a model when it comes to those certificate and pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship programs. So before I get to the main question as to what you as a commission wants, I know on the CAM I had mentioned film. I just wanted to give a brief update on an April summit that Broward Mayor Steve Geller hosted. There was an idea to have one film office under the county. I suggested having some municipal roundtable councils to get that participation when it came to deciding whether to unify permitting. So the idea is that each municipality would have a liaison to inform the commission, the city commission and its residents of the proposed film and details that are necessary, as well as working with the county to sort out relevant details, timing of the filming, locations of the filming, et cetera, before the county approves the permit in conjunction with that city liaison. And then the liaison would then provide the approved permit to the film representative. The CVB does not want to be included or a part of the film permitting process, so they would be removed from the current process. And municipalities who don't want to participate in film would be placed on a list and mapped out for those film representatives. And it eliminates the multiple and differing guidance from 31 different municipalities throughout the county, which the film industry has said was difficult for them. So now I ask you, as a commission as a whole, please tell me what you want when it comes to economic development and marketing the city, and whether or not you think, the ideas that I've proposed are feasible, good. Do you like them? You don't like them? Just let me know.
All right. Thank you, Daphne. That was really, really nice. Commissioner Moritas, do you have any?
Yes, I do have ideas. Thank you, Daphne. This is great. I love it, and I love the little piece you did on Tech Fort Lauderdale Mayor, and I do think some smaller videos like that, highlighting different areas. I know I've talked to Mark about highlighting the Galt Shops area, and Elsie, we're going to do a video in the fall. We haven't quite given you the details yet, but highlighting the different business areas that we have in the city. And just, I know Mark says everyone loves video nowadays, so that's a great way to get more about our city. I think the first video you showed was maybe a good overview of someone doesn't know anything, but maybe more targeted videos that show different kind of live, work, play areas. For example, the Galt, we have 16,000 residents right there in those condos, or you can also work there. So what I'm thinking as a government, or when businesses want to come to our area, if we're trying to attract businesses, I think they're looking to also see what is the city of Fort Lauderdale doing to make this a great place for their business to flourish and their workers to want to live here. That's I think a big concern a lot of times that I've heard from businesses is, well, maybe I'd come, but your housing is too expensive, or, I'm not crazy about the schools, which is, why I know Mark's going to do some pieces on education and highlight Zoe. We're probably one of the only cities in our country that has a chief chief education officer, just kind of highlighting some things we're doing in that space. So as a government, I believe our job, I like that you're applying for grants and then we're going to give this to our businesses. I know I've been talking to the Galt a lot about that, but what we do is, most important for me, is we provide a safe community. Maybe just highlighting, our police force, our fire department, I believe we have a safe community. Some other cities across our country aren't experiencing that same level of public safety. And I think that's an important reason why businesses should want to come here. I believe we're providing great public spaces, highlighting everything we're doing, from all the parks we just talked about in District 2 to Lockhart Park. What are the great public spaces? Like when I go to New York City, I run around to some great buildings and businesses and shows, but then I also get to Bryant Park or Central Park. I think we have to have both. Transportation is huge for businesses to relocate here. I think when we discuss later today, boring, we have FLL, FXE, we have Brightline. We're the center of Brightline. I mean, Fort Lauderdale is the center of Brightline. So I think we should say that. It's Orlando to Miami, and we're right there. Boring is going to be huge if we do it, and especially when it has a path to Lockhart Park. Highlighting the different entertainment districts, whether it's the downtown like you did, I think that's also a reason why people want to live here. So once again, when businesses relocate here, they want their people to be happy. So what does it look like to be a person who's working in this area. Once again, I think we should highlight our sports, the Aquatic Center, 27 meters, Panthers, Inter Miami. I mean, this is all this happened recently with really this past commission. People want to live in a place with great sports teams. Once again, highlighting a live, work, play community where you don't have to go far. You can, once again, Uptown has 200 businesses. We really didn't have a lot of residential. We changed that to provide more residential. Downtown has Fat Village. So highlighting live, work, play, work on Las Olas, live, work, play on Uptown, live in Uptown. Broadband, you mentioned, is important. And then the last comment I have is promoting a trained workforce. I hear businesses, they don't want to come to this area because they can't find a good trained workforce, which is why I'm super passionate about career technical training. And when we kind of do what we hope to do at Lockhart Community Center, and Zoe and all the team, we come up with some really cool, great career technical programs. I know you mentioned NSU and that program out there. What we're going to do is equally as impressive. Should I say more so, Zoe? I probably shouldn't. I should be nice. Equally as impressive to what they're doing out there when, if, everything works out and this commission likes the idea. So that's really great too. So those are just, in my mind, in a nutshell, I think to bring great businesses, we have to be a great city. And that's what we do as a government. Sometimes things are out of our control. Like we're not, it's not Visit Florida. What's the company that gives money out of Florida?
Enterprise
Florida. Yes. We're not Enterprise Florida, right? So we don't have those opportunities. We do have Tortuga, so maybe Visit Florida. Highlighting the entertainment once again. So I'm thinking, what can we do as a city to make this a great place where businesses want to relocate and bring people? Thank you.
All right, great. Commissioner Sorensen? Glassman?
Yes.
You look alike.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor. Yes, those are great points. I want to echo what the Vice Mayor said, all of that. I'll be honest with you, and with all due respect, when I watched the first video, it just seemed a little dry to me. It didn't really capture any excitement for the city, whether it was the script itself or the voiceover. So I think if we're going to really be serious about this, and I think we have to, because I don't think we've ever branded ourselves enough when it comes to economic development. We just have to be, I think, bolder and more excited about it. Obviously we know and we read about the reasons why all of the folks are coming here now, whether they're coming here just as individuals moving here or why businesses are moving here. So as the Vice Mayor said, let's use those reasons. Let's play to the audience. We know why they're coming, but yet I felt that the videos did not capture the reasons, the current events right now, and make it current. Say, even if we just say something like, we know why you're all coming here, but the rest of you need to know as well, something like that, and you push all of the reasons that we're seeing this attractiveness of the city in terms of people moving their businesses here and also wanting to live here. Pretty much that's it. I think the Vice Mayor made a lot of good points. I think it needs to be a lot more comprehensive. And I just think that it needs to really just capture so much more. I felt that in many ways you could plug a lot of different cities into what I just saw. And I don't want us to be like a boilerplate that, you could pick a city and say all those things that were said in the beginning, or, even some of the detail that, the mayor said in his. And Mayor, I thought yours was better than the first video. You're welcome. So but I would like to see a combination, and I would like to see just even more, so that when people see this or read this, Fort Lauderdale just really stick. You're talking about Fort Lauderdale and not just any place USA. That's all.
Okay.
Thanks.
Awesome.
Commissioner Sorensen?
Yep. Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Daphne. Agree with all that's been said. I like the idea of these like leader vignettes with business leaders. Why are you here? Why is it working? I think that's great. So I think doing more of that is excellent. And then I think it's also really important. You and I have talked about this, is collaborating. So collaborating with the Alliance, the Chamber, the DDA, businesses, really making sure that's robust and really leveraging some of this work they've already done from a PR marketing standpoint. So I forget which one has the tagline, less taxing, Fort Lauderdale's less taxing, right? The Alliance does, yeah, great. So some of that can be incorporated in. We don't have to create all this on our own. So just leverage some of they've paid for PR work and so forth. So just more we can leverage that and align and lift that up, I think the better. Great, thank you.
Okay,
Awesome.
I don't see Commissioner McKenzie here. Okay, so, Sarah, you want to take it from there? Thank you so much, Daphne.
I mean, I'm in charge.
Press the enter button. Okay. Did the mayor disappear?
You go ahead.
Should I? Okay.
You can go, yeah.
Good afternoon, Sarah Hannah Spurlock. I'm the Nighttime Economy Manager. So as Chris explained, we are coming up with some ideas for marketing and building on the wonderful assets that we already have here in Fort Lauderdale. And an 18-hour city is something that I wanted to present to the commission to get your thoughts and feedback. So what is an 18-hour city? It's not something I made up. It's a term actually that economists and real estate investors have coined to describe a mid-sized city with attractive amenities and a solid infrastructure, higher than average population growth, a lower cost of living than larger gateway cities, robust amenities and services that go well into the twilight hours, and a distinctive and lovable culture, which is kind of something Commissioner Glassman, you touched on. So the 24-hour gateway cities would include Boston, New York, LA, San Francisco, Chicago. And those cities are typically known for their 24-hour atmosphere. So 18-hour cities have similar advantages to 24-hour cities, just for fewer hours. Some examples of 18-hour cities: Nashville, Boise, Kansas City, Seattle, Charleston, South Carolina, Charlotte, North Carolina, Denver. There's several. There's more than just this, but there's several. These are good examples. And the Urban Land Institute, in their recent report, a 2016 report, they noted that 17 of the top 20 and 9 of the top 10 real estate markets in the U.S. are in 18-hour cities. So what's so great about an 18-hour city? These cities are characterized by their availability of recreation and entertainment opportunities. As you mentioned, Vice Mayor Moraitis, people want something to do and people want to live here. And 18-hour cities tend to offer these things at a more affordable level and more accessible level than, say, a 24-hour city. One of the reasons 18-hour cities are so popular is that that's where millennials want to live. And at 76 million, millennials are our largest demographic. And as you know, our millennials are now aging, and they're all pushing 40. So they've got, well, they're not all pushing 40, but a lot of them are pushing 40. And they've got families, and they're looking for fun, family-oriented places to live, and not just hip and trendy 3 a.m., going out and partying like they may have 10 years ago. Employees like them because the cost of doing business is less and because the cost of living is less. So they tend to attract more job seekers than our 24-hour gateway cities. So a city that sometimes sleeps, as Chris mentioned at the beginning, when I had mentioned the 24-hour city concept a couple of years ago, I kind of got the deer in the headlight look. I'm not sure we want to be a 24-hour city. But an 18-hour city is, I think, very manageable and attractive. Additional hours of safe nighttime activities and services create more jobs. Diverse nighttime activation creates a viable transition from daytime to nighttime. So law enforcement and safety at night is not just about police officers and firefighters. Those are key components, obviously, but there's a lot more to public safety and just having an attractive nighttime destination than law enforcement. So the mixture of people creates a calmer environment in the street, and it makes unsociable behavior less acceptable. More activation during the night, during the twilight hours, would encourage commuters to stick around, alleviating some congestion at rush hour traffic, especially in South Florida, where the summer heat can be brutal. Offering more access to and providing more opportunities in our parks and open spaces at night is vital to maintaining an active economy. So nightlife isn't a nuisance to be shut down, but an economic driver to be supported. You know, we when I say we, folks in my profession, we don't like that term that we often hear, that nothing good happens after midnight. With a global trend toward urban living and approximately 80% of Americans living in metro areas where there tends to be more vibrant nightlife, healthy nighttime economies will likely become an increasingly significant part of the overall economy. And that's according to a recent article in Forbes. Nightlife as an economic driver. The travel and tourism sector currently account for over 10% of our global GOP. The hospitality industry accounts for 313 million jobs, almost 10% of total employment, and 20% of all global net jobs. American millennials spend 44% of their food budgets eating out instead of cooking in. So why should we care about the nightlife? Nightlife is a critical part of the city's economy. These three cities have done fiscal impact studies on their nightlife. San Francisco's $6 billion in economic impact and 62,000 employees in restaurants, bars, music venues, and performance spaces. New York City, $19.1 billion in economic impact, with almost 200,000 jobs in the nightlife. Sydney, Australia, $27.2 billion economic impact, 34,000 jobs. So the chart on the right is actually an American Express transaction report, of in-person transactions compiled in Sydney. So as you see, in places like Berlin, 36% of their in-person transactions occur at night.
Sarah, just quick question.
Sure.
Being a father of two little girls, I don't get much nightlife exposure. Define nightlife to me? Is that from like sun go down to sun come up?
I would say 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. That would be a 24-hour city, but I kind of look at things after 5. So 5 p.m. is the traditional closing time. So nightlife is not just your party hours. It's not just your 10 p.m. and 12 a.m. and beyond. It's also your twilight. Well, we have a very strong twilight presence in Fort Lauderdale, and I think it's something that we can build on. So I kind of see 6 to 10 as the Gen X boomer family-oriented time that we really have a lot of potential to build on.
Thanks.
So if you had two little boys, you can go out at night?
If I had
I'm just trying to figure it out.
Earlier.
Oh.
Two little girls. I go to bed at
10,
8:30, 9 o'clock.
Absolutely.
I can't handle it, man. I'll leave the nightlife up to y'all to celebrate.
Commissioner, just think of it as after early bird dinner.
After early bird,
After
okay.
early.
I think of that as right before bed is what I think
Yes,
about.
exactly.
You can come to the golf. We have happy hour at 4,
Uh-oh.
Elsie?
Now we're talking.
Be noon happy hour starts.
Happy hours usually go till 7 o'clock. I think that's doable.
Yeah, okay, I could make that.
A vibrant and safe life at night doesn't happen by accident. So it takes a concerted effort by the government, by our businesses, by the cultural industry, the hospitality industry, the education industry, the manufacturing industry, to make that investment mean something and to look at not just the cultural and creative aspect of nightlife, which is really what's the fertilizer of the cultural and creative nightlife is nighttime, but also to look at the folks that work after dark. How are they safely getting from place to place? How are they safely enjoying a transportation and viable mobility ecosystem? So what can we do to move this forward? So I have a hard time seeing. So one of the things I have recommended is doing our own nighttime economic fiscal impact study. That would tell us not only where we are, but where our opportunities are to improve. And then in a few years, we do another one and we see how we've built our economy at nighttime. I don't see a robust nighttime economy as taking away from your daytime economy. It's actually complementing it and supplementing it. Invest in safe and accessible nighttime mobility and transportation. One of the reasons Portland is considered an 18-hour city is because of their outstanding transit system. They're considered one of the best transit cities in the country with their TriMet. They've got three, I can't remember what they're all called, but 3 different mechanisms of travel, and you can basically get anywhere from anywhere at any time. Consider municipal service provision after 5. Traditionally, governments operate from 8 to 5, 9 to 5, and this is just offering that opportunity to for folks that work during the day to possibly have additional time to get city business done, either after 5 or you can even consider before 8 a.m. Create a nighttime task force that looks at enhancing our nightlife. When RHI, Responsible Hospitality Institute, did their study a few years ago before I started, that was actually one of their recommendations. And several cities that have positions like mine actually have an advisory board or a task force that advises. The City of London a few years ago, the mayor appointed a 20-member task force, and they came up with 10 recommendations on how to enliven and build and foster their nightlife. Develop strategies that address growing conflict between residential areas and venues with regard to sound. So I like to call it sound and not noise. But it doesn't just happen in Fort Lauderdale, that conflict. It happens everywhere, in every urban city. And it's real, and it's something that we need to work on and develop strategies to deal with. Develop ways to attract and retain local artists. The housing complex in Sailboat Bend is a perfect example. Just more of that. We need to, artists only the really famous artists are rich and famous. I mean, the artists have struggle, and affordable housing is always an issue in Fort Lauderdale, but there are things that we should be looking at to encourage artists to want to live in our community. A great quote that I heard a couple months ago, serve customers, not drinks. So focus on the experience, not a get drunk quick, party, all night long until you throw up, but like a real experience. A lot of millennials are teetotalers, as a matter of fact. Let's provide them something fun to do that doesn't involve alcohol. In New York City, the pandemic, there's now a company who has started pop-up alcohol-free bars, and it's become like a real thing. Encourage businesses to keep nighttime hours. We don't have anything in our ordinances that prohibits businesses from staying open later. We do have laws that prohibit alcohol sales, obviously, but not staying open later. And, wouldn't it be great if the library was open past 6? If you want to take your kids after dinner, Commissioner Sorensen, to the library, you can't do that right now. The art museum closes at 6. Wouldn't it be great if the museums were open till 9 or 10, so you had the more family-oriented activities? Implement SEPTID practices, crime prevention through environmental design. So that deals with methods of natural surveillance, like windows instead of walls, lighting, trimmed landscaping, so that you can see where you're going at night. Things are a lot different when the sun goes down. Natural access relies on doors and fences and shrubberies to kind of keep a sense of space. Territorial reinforcement and maintenance and management, just a pride of place. All of those principles are part of SEPTID. That's all I got.
Okay. Vice Mayor, your thoughts?
Oh, I'm just listening too. Thank you, Sarah. I really appreciate all of it. I'm almost thinking too of like our co-working locations. Are any of those open later? And then maybe who do we work with in Fort Lauderdale? Do we work with Europe, or do we work with Asia? Maybe that would have an impact also on what hours our businesses were open, so to speak. So I was just kind of thinking those thoughts. Anything you can do, maybe just like you said, just promoting some ideas or activities that we could do after hours. I'm not really sure of what's open after hours, because I'm probably not out much either. Good ideas. I like, maybe the museum or the library. I like having those open at night too. I guess you can come to a commission meeting, right? That's what you can do after hours. We should communicate that for the best entertainment. 6 o'clock, we're here.
Yes,
Yeah.
75% of these people are staff.
Yeah. Well, we got some good diehards here with us that we all enjoy this.
They got an agenda item.
Yeah.
Gotta
Anyway,
serve
so
alcohol.
thank you. And I love the little
Don't
pop-up
start.
ideas and
What do
all
you got
kinds
under
of
the
fun
desk
stuff.
there? What do you have under the desk?
Alcohol
Alcohol, yeah.
and a band. Beach Boys.
Beach Boy. Okay, your turn. What do you all think?
Me?
All right, Commissioners Glassman.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Sarah. Just a couple of comments. I think it's definitely worth looking at, but I want to highlight some of the points that you made. Number one, we definitely have to get a handle on what you call sound and how that affects neighbors if we are going to be looking at an 18-hour city. So I think that's a priority. I do like the idea of what you talk about in terms of the artists and the arts. In fact, there was a discussion that we had a while ago. I'd love to see us have that conversation again about buskers and street performers, and especially now that we're coming out of COVID. I would love to see us address that again.
You're going to resurrect your juggling act?
No, well, anytime you want, Mayor. I feel I do a lot of juggling here, so
Yes.
thank you. But I would love us to be able to look at ways to, have those people on the corners and, a little bit of Asheville, North Carolina somehow locally. I think that would be terrific. So let's look at that again. But then again, I do have concerns. I know that our entertainment district, for instance, in the Himmishi area, I don't know where that is right now in terms of our efforts to address some of those problems, but we definitely have those problems. So I'd like to see what we're doing moving forward with the Himmishi Entertainment District and actually all of our entertainment districts. I will let you know the latest I've heard actually is that in terms of artists live workspaces, the Westside Grade School, which has been dormant now and sort of abandoned by the county, the same group that did the Artists Live Workspaces in the new building next door, now looking at doing more Artists Live Workspaces in the historic Westside Grade School in Sailboat Bend. So I just wanted to share that information with you as well. And all of this is great, and I probably should have also said this when Daphne was speaking as well. Let's get people excited by the city by also just taking a look at our own website. I mean, I think that some of the ideas that Daphne brought forward or that you're bringing forward, things that we can highlight about our city, with all due respect to folks involved with this website, I find it a little dated and not really emphasizing what our city is really all about. I find it lacking in, website 2021. It's website maybe a while ago. So I would love to see us do something there where our city's website is brought into the 21st century and is a little bit more exciting. And I think if we have something like that, because many people will just go to a website to get some preliminary information, I think then that might catch their attention, might grab their enthusiasm, and then we can, direct them in other ways. So those are my comments. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, Commissioner McKenzie.
Really don't have a comment, but what kind of city are we now? You want to go to an 18-hour city? What are we now?
12 and a half.
Yeah, I don't know that there's been a
If you go through the
designated
Burger King
label.
drive-through, it's 24 hours.
I heard you spend a lot of time over there too. We saw the mayor at Burger King. What's the deal with you and Burger King?
He does a juggling act right outside.
Have the Whopper.
But when I look at these cities and how they compare, what stood out to me was infrastructure, transportation systems, and then some of the things that you named, like our library has been extended for those hours. We don't have control over the libraries. It's a county function. Our infrastructure, we're working on, we don't have a transportation system. I mean, other than the bus, cars, we're trying to get people out of cars with bicycles and things of that nature. So we have a lot of legwork to do, prior to switching the switch from 12-and-a-half-hour city to an 18-hour city if we really want this to work. Because in most of those cities, they have all these things that are defined as a city that makes up an 18-hour city. So, I mean, we got a lot of heavy lifting because infrastructure is, as we know, very, very expensive. So, I mean, the idea, I mean, to do something different with me, I love it. So, but at what cost and how fast can we get there?
Commissioner Sorensen?
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, so I'm looking at what can we do to move this effort forward. So these suggestions all make sense to me. I think are worthwhile in terms of exploring. Sound ordinance, Chris Allen, we're bringing that up. When are we kind of aiming to bring that back up? August, September?
Yeah, we're going to try to work out some of the discrepancies between the interpretations over the summer. We'll bring it back in the fall.
Okay. So August.
Hopefully right as we come back from the break, yes.
Okay. Great. So yeah, I think that's an important part to this. And when I hear 18-hour, I think some people might say, oh, does that mean everything's going to be open for 18 hours a day? It's just a general description of kind of a more robust city, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I think there may be folks may
And
like
more
me be
robust,
new to this.
and be more robust past the traditional hours.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And again, past the traditional hours, more robust, not necessarily just dining and entertainment, but we're talking about all this, the holistic
Absolutely.
offerings of the city. Okay. What's that, Mayor?
Walking your dog at 3 a.m.
Walking my dog at 3 a.m. Yes. Yes. Ginger needs her exercise. She's full of energy. The mention on the entertainment district, I've been getting more complaints and just concerns about him or she. Are we evaluating that? Are we looking at the?
Yeah, we are. We find that a key component that's missing in our entertainment district ordinance is some operational accountability criteria. So that is something that I am now working with the legal department to try to beef up and try to implement some better enforcement down there.
So can I speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, because I've got more questions about.
I think I was a commissioner when we first
Told you.
enacted.
Yeah, see,
Been around a long time.
all started with you.
First enacted the entertainment district.
Mhm.
And the purpose of that, which is basically extend the drinking hours to 4 a.m.
Okay.
The purpose of that was to draw people to the area because the areas were dormant, and we were trying to draw people to an area that was just not very popular at the time. And I think we're sort of victims of our own success in that regard.
Mhm.
We have 2 entertainment districts. We have 2 4 a.m. districts, right? We have one on the beach.
We actually have 5.
We have 5.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's just talk about the 2 that I'm about to speak about. The one on the beach and the one in Himmershey, okay? The one on the beach, I think, has outlived its useful life. I think that the culture and the environment of A1A has matured, and the 4 a.m. crowd is really interfering with the kind of upscale development that we've encouraged in the meantime. And I think we perhaps should reconsider what we have there on the beach and bring it back a little bit. With regard to Himmershey, again, it's become a vortex of a lot of excitement for young people who come there and has driven a lot of development in the area. I mean, look at the wharf, for example, okay? The wharf is a destination for people all over South Florida, not just Fort Lauderdale. And so let's instead of destroying something, let's try to, like you say, Sarah, let's try to give it a context and perhaps take more control of the situation. What's happening with the rest of Himmershey? I know that there's some developer interest in reimagining, that whole Himmershey area, and maybe with the change of zoning that we did earlier this year, you might see some investment in that area that might change the complexion of that area in terms of minimizing the entertainment aspect and more, creating a more balanced use of that area rather than just bars and restaurants. But I do agree with you, Commissioner Sorensen. We really need to not be stuck in time. These ordinances were passed at a point in time when we were trying to incentivize
Exactly
the dollar, and I think they've succeeded. But now I think that perhaps we need to rethink where we should be incentivizing. And those are just two areas that I think we have been successful at, but now I think we need to rethink, what is our purpose here? So I just wanted to say that because in conjunction with what the commissioner was saying.
Yeah, I agree, Mayor. I mean, I just think we've grown as a city. We're growing up, and I think there's adjustments. So I'd like to, and I don't know the mechanism, but I'm really interested in reevaluating this entertainment district and just kind of how we can serve better our businesses and our residents, all right there. So is that something we can, I don't know, have another, Chris, I don't know the mechanism again, just another discussion about, or how to?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're in the process of doing that now.
Yeah, we're working on that right now.
Yeah, so we'll put some
Okay.
together and bring it back, yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Thanks.
the ordinance needs, it doesn't work.
Yeah, I thought, Alan, you
doesn't
and I had talked
yeah,
about this.
It doesn't work. So
Right.
we're trying to restructure it. We're trying to look at some different ways of achieving what we want to achieve,
Okay.
but the current ordinance isn't doing it.
Okay, great. And then Commissioner Glassman's point about the website, I thought it was spot on. I agree. And Chris, we had talked about that. There was Granicus engaged to redesign the website? It's just been a non-moving process from my view.
You're correct in your first part of your statement. Let me get you an update
Yeah.
as to the status, and I'll bring it back at the evening meeting.
Okay. And is that who are we
I
paying
believe that's
Granicus
correct.
right now to
I
do
believe
this?
that's correct.
Okay. I'm just concerned about that. So, okay. Great. Thank you. That's all I've got, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Thanks, Sarah.
First of all, Sarah, thank you so much for your presentation, and also Daphne. You really. Oh, there you are. Okay. I really, I know you folks have put a lot of time into this, and while there's some suggestions on improvement, I know that that you've taken a hard look at our city and really thought this thing through quite a bit. I just want to comment on a couple of things. In terms of transportation systems, I've visited a lot of these cities where they put light rail and sort of improve their bike paths throughout the city. Let's take Portland, for example. We'll take Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C., they just installed the light rail system, and nobody uses it. And I spoke with someone in Congress, a staff person in charge of the. She was chief of staff. She is chief of staff for the Infrastructure Transportation Committee in Congress. And I said, "Why did you build this?" And they said, "Well, the point was economic development, not so much transportation. It was to give people jobs in building it, as opposed to actually fulfilling a transportation need." Now, as a taxpayer, that burns me up because it was a short-term advantage for, and it's going to be an expense that's going to live with that city forever. In Portland, you see multiple rail systems crisscrossing through their city, and some people do take them, okay, but the investment was so enormous. I don't see enough people. All the days that I've spent and the several times I've been to Portland, I never saw enough use of it. Where you see mass transportation being totally used, New York City, where they jam you into all the subway systems, right? That's where transportation is needed. Even the bike lanes in Portland, they have these enormous bike lanes, and very few people really use them. I mean, it's amazing how much space they take. New York City transformed Fifth Avenue. They completely redid Fifth Avenue, where they have a parking area, they have a buffer, they have a bike lane, they have a buffer, and then they have the travel lanes. And you don't see thousands of people riding bikes in New York City. You know where you see thousands of people riding bikes? In Beijing, in Shanghai, okay, where people can't afford cars, okay? So I don't think Fort Lauderdale is there. I really feel that the mentality in America, and certainly in Fort Lauderdale, is still a car-driven society. But and that's why it's so important for us to think about, the idea of how do we manage a society that still thinks in terms of cars, and how can we better utilize transportation ideas. And that's why the tunnel system makes so much sense for our community, because it takes advantage of the use of driven or autonomous vehicles that takes people from where they're coming from and where they want to be. and it just makes so much sense for Fort Lauderdale to adopt something like that. Now, in terms of other issues, like we talked about artists, housing, and so forth. I've gotten several calls from folks that rent in the Beehive area, their artist studios, and that developers are buying up the real estate. And these folks can't afford any higher rents, and they're going to be driven out of an area that they themselves created. They created, an area that was sort of a forgotten section of our town. They through just a lot of ingenuity and creativity. They created they took an area and brightened it up, and now they're going to be driven out of there. Now they're victims of their own success because they brought attention to an area of the city that no one was paying attention to, and now they're being driven out. Where are we going to? What kind of area can we transport that creativity and still retain it within the city? This is important for us, and this is imminent. So as we think about all these different issues, whether they be 4 a.m. licenses and noise and so forth, a lot of it has to do with enforcement. And we have the issue with the Water Garden downtown, and Salt 7 restaurant continues to be a thorn in our side. I hear both sides of I hear people that live in the Water Garden, or not the Water Garden, it's the
Las Olas Grand.
I'm sorry. The Grand. I get emails from people in the Grand saying, it's become miserable to live there. I can't stand the noise. And then I get emails from other people in the Grand telling me, don't listen to those old fuddy-duddies because there's really nothing wrong with Salt 7. And it's like, all right, so the thing is, obviously we don't want the urban experience to be an unpleasant experience. We want the urban experience to be exciting. We want it to be, vibrant, and we want it to be edgy, okay? But we don't want it to be obnoxious. And so that's the task, that's the challenge that we have as a commission and you as our staff people to try to come up with a formula, a palette of different suggestions that would help paint a beautiful downtown and still be able to enjoy, this 18-hour concept that you speak of. Because there are a lot of, people run on different numbers of cylinders, and I think that we should try to accommodate as many people as possible, those who visit here as well as those who live here. So I have no further questions. There are 3 people that signed up to speak. So if you have nothing else, anything else to ask of Sarah, then we'll allow these three people to speak. So Mary Fertig, followed by Stan Eichelbaum, followed by Paul Chettle. I'm sorry, people, I've lost my voice over the weekend. We did a lot of talking this weekend.
Good
How are
afternoon.
you, Mary?
I'm good. How are you? I'm really glad I came and listened to this. This was not at all what I thought it was going to be. So my first suggestion to you is to change the name. I think that 18-hour city kind of gives the concept. Great presentations, both of you.
Worked up, huh?
Kind of gives you, there's so much
Got y'all
talk
worked
about
up, huh?
the noise and people staying, keeping people up all night and the party houses in the neighborhood and this and that. You see 18-hour city and
bonfires.
you're thinking, oh my gosh. But when you're talking about the prime hours that you're targeting being 6 to 10, that's a whole different topic and the type of activities you're building up. And first, I loved your first one about, obviously the incentives of education and addressing housing costs as way to attract people to our city. But I think as you get to this 18-hour city, just change that name, address the critical issue of sound/noise, whatever you want to call it. And really, I was interested. There were 5 entertainment districts. I'd kind of like to know where they are. As a mother of 5 of my 6 children are millennials, and I would like to say I learned something interesting today. I've often wondered why, instead of eating the wonderful home-cooked meals they're offered, they want to go out to eat. And now I know that 44% of their budget is spent on eating out, so I don't feel badly at all. But I think that we've got to address the noise ordinance and livability because we really want to be a family-friendly city. And for those of us that sleep at night, we probably want to sleep sometime at night. So just maybe a new name. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Stan Eichelbaum, followed by Paul Chetto. Is Paul still here? Yeah, there he is.
Wow, aspiration, really, really great. But first, I think I'll go with Commissioner McKenzie for once. We're going to agree on something.
Oh, my God.
Let's fix the city and get it
this
ready for
moment.
that.
I support it.
Moment of silence, please.
Let's see how we can move on that.
I told you we were together. We're here.
Can I pray?
We're here.
I had prepared remarks.
I'll
I
drink
got to
to
say
that.
the misnomer of everything sort of changes everything. I'm a fan of a lot of it. I really didn't want to be here today. I'm here because I'm hearing fast-growing anxiety about city governance. I may be naive, but I believe government can service a community's livability needs. I've been fortunate to work with mayors and city administrators that wanted to excel for all and did so. I liked what I just heard. I'm here because I hope you, who have taken oaths to protect the public interest, will do it so to better standards. I'm here because many are questioning whether you care about resident livability or, as some have said, are you deaf to it? I'm here because I dislike hypocrisy. People from at least 14 neighborhoods are complaining about the noise enforcement and not getting responses from the mayor, commissioners, the city manager, and administration. The noise code has been deferred from the last 3 or 4 commission conference sessions, including today's. A commissioner last week said in a call with people from a number of neighborhoods that the city, despite having an opinion from their legal director, can't decide what enforcement levels are. And he appeared fine, saying the sound debacle can continue until after all have vacationed. Even more questionable is deferring that subject and then, mistakenly, albeit, hosting a session on the 18-hour city. I've been inundated with phone calls. They didn't like seeing "Is it right for Fort Lauderdale?" with statements like "a city that sometimes sleeps hits in the wrong way right now." I'd be a hypocrite if I said I was against entertainment districts, having led successful strategic planning of them in Boston, Portland, Cincinnati, Dubai, San Francisco, El Salvador, Rio de Janeiro, and other markets. I'm in
Yet
favor.
you chose Fort Lauderdale to live in. And yet you chose Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah, yeah, with much research, but I didn't expect certain things. But yes, I thought the potential was the highest I'd seen. And I used my firm that Goldman Sachs had rated #1 in the world to assess the entire United States to pick the place for the rest of my life. And it was Fort Lauderdale.
And this has Goldman Sachs seal of approval.
What?
This has Goldman Sachs seal of approval.
It did back then. No, they weren't really part of the assessment. I'm in favor of real study and good planning of such. But what's on inner needs a lot more strength. It's wrong starting with avoiding communication to residents and not considering them as stakeholders in the effort. I've seen the long-term success when the study is deep enough with comparative gridding analysis, property infrastructure assessment, including sound impact studies, cost-benefit reviews, girth analysis, policing and compliance cost analysis, etc. Sound and entertainment is a tough challenge, but we've worked it over and over again in city after city where there is an inclusive process. It's interesting that this project package lists several cities, but doesn't mention that most of the cities' research have strong codes protecting noise intrusion on residents. Several also have large effective compliance staffs. One of the cities has 21 full-time people on compliance. And 2, citizens can actually give their own citation to a business if an officer is present. First, fix the problem, then let's progress with truly mature planning. I'll be a big fan. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Stan.
Paul Chetto, please.
Good afternoon, Commission. So I support the 18-hour with a slightly different name. One of the things that I had the opportunity to do 5 years ago was to speak to Mr. Tim Petrillo and Mr. Jack Seiler at a DDA breakfast and speak about the fact that in the 5 regional activity centers that we don't really have rules of the road, and that if you have rules of the road, you eliminate this unnecessary angst that we have. And if you have an articulated plan and you enforce it, not selectively enforce it, but enforce it, then everybody knows what the rules of the road are when they move in. And there's no conflict, which is the number 5 on the last screen, which is the conflict between the residents and the businesses. It goes a little bit deeper than we've got some old fuddy-duddies and some other people saying everything is fine. I did some research, which I always do before I speak, despite previous comments, and I pulled down 25,000 records from Estella, which is your city enforcement program, Mayor. And I looked at the 6,000 odd enforcement cases. And number one, you will notice if you have an aide look through your inbox and you look at all the times and the identified times of when people have complained about noise ordinances, you will find there is no one-to-one correlation between the complaints and the complaints that are recorded. So number one, there is a suppression of code enforcement complaints by the public. That's an ethical problem, number one. Number two, when you look at the famous email from the city attorney regarding the decibel level at the various times of night, particularly after 10 o'clock, and you see that there is not a consistent enforcement of that code. Again, you can go to this seller, your system that you can look at, anybody in the city can look at it, and you can see that the number of enforced actions does not equal the number of incidents. And so again, it is not just a case of some old people. It's a matter of having a rule and having it enforced, not selectively, and having the available data so that you can make the informed decision. That's your job. Your job is to make an informed decision. That's why people like me support some of you. At the end of the day, we may or may not like the decision that you make, but you've got to have all the information. And right now, you don't have all the information because the very system that you would rely on to make that determination doesn't have the accurate information. So I hope that you will come up with whatever the rule is. I hope it's soon, because some of the neighbors, and you see it again if you read the latest P&Z minutes, completely unrelated location complaints about noise. This is happening all over the city. This is more than just the 14 neighborhoods. So anyway, I wish you good luck, and I hope you come up with a rule, and I hope you enforce the rule. Then everyone will be better off, no matter which side they're on. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So, Chris, what are next steps in this regard?
So I've got Anthony's group looking at it at this point. We'll bring forward a discussion with the commission in August, but I think we're going to need to restudy our noise ordinance similar to what we did, what seems to be, I guess it was late 2008-ish or so. So I think it's slightly outdated compared to where we are as a city today. So we probably will be bringing forward a recommendation to restudy the current noise ordinance and then bring back to you modifications that make sense for where you all are today from a policy perspective.
And also, not just the noise ordinance, but the 4A license districts that we have, maybe we should, re-examine the importance of those and where we should keep them and where we don't think they belong anymore.
Okay. Yeah, we'll ask Sarah to lead that charge.
Yeah, I agree, Mayor. And can I tack on to that, Mayor? Chris, I'm not familiar. Paul mentioned the system of Acela, and if I was tracking it right, he was saying the enforcement actions are not equal to the number of incidents.
That's a computer software that exists in the Department of Sustainable Development, presumably tracks our enforcement actions.
Okay.
I know I see a weekend update every Monday morning as to what noise enforcement occurred over the weekend, what calls for service were gone through the code department, and what the result of that enforcement action was. But if there's more specifically, I could let Anthony speak to how that software works or how it tracks things.
Yeah. That'd be good, just so I understand what the
do take exception
discrepancy
to the ethical issue there.
Yeah, I don't think it's intentional.
Good afternoon, Anthony Fajardo. So if I heard the question correctly, it was why is there not as many enforcement actions taken as there are cases that are listed in the system? Is that?
We can start with that.
Yeah.
So what happens is, regardless of what the complaint is, a case is always opened just for tracking purposes. But if it's unfounded, the case is closed. It doesn't, just because you open a case doesn't mean there's going to be enforcement action. If there's no enforcement action to be taken, then none's taken, none's recorded in the system, the case is closed. So you're never going to see 50 cases have 50 actions taken against them for enforcement purposes.
So in other words, if I call up, upset about noise, that's counted as what? What?
That would be a case. We'd open
One
a case.
So you open a case. Then if code comes out, measures, and finds that it's within the permissible limits, there's zero enforcement action.
There's no enforcement taken. There
one
should be a
case.
note in the system saying what they did,
Yep.
but there won't be any enforcement taken.
Yep. Okay. And that's why you're always going to have a discrepancy.
It's
between
always going to be a
cases and
discrepancy.
enforcement. Okay.
And
I just
we
wanna
open a
clear that
case
up.
for, even when we know it's not a valid case, we go ahead and open it just for tracking purposes.
Right.
So we always open a case.
Okay. Thanks.
Great.
Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to speak on this item? Okay, I see nobody. All right, thank you. So there are no. So the next steps, you're going to come back to us with recommendations, correct?
That's correct. We'll have a recommendation for you in August.
Okay, great. All right, so the next item on the agenda is commission reports, but we are running kind of late. So can I ask that we do the closed door session first, and then we can come back and do the commission reports before.
CRA also?
Can we just,
Can we do
Yeah,
the
I'll forego
CRA
my
first?
report.
You want to do the CRA
Yeah,
first?
if we could do the CRA first, and then you'll probably read your statement. I would like to go into a closed meeting to discuss the unsolicited proposal first, and then the closed door meeting that the attorney has advertised second, and then we'll come back to a public meeting.
Okay, so let us begin the Community Redevelopment Agency Board meeting. Could you please call the roll, Mr. Clerk?
Vice Chair Moritas,
Here.
Commissioner Glassman,
Here.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Here.
Commissioner Sorensen,
here.
Chair Trentellis.
Here, and we have a quorum. M1, motion approving minutes for June 15, 2021, Community Redevelopment Agency Board meeting. Any comments or modifications? There being none, someone like to move the item?
Move. Second.
Moved and seconded, please call the roll.
Commissioner Sorensen,
Yes.
Vice Chair Moritas,
Yes.
Commissioner Glassman,
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Chair Trentellis.
Yes, and the minutes are approved. M2, motion approving a partial release of mortgage to the Property and Business Investment Improvement Program Agreement and the non-residential facade improvement agreement for 200 South Market Street LLC in exchange for partial payment of $42,500 and the delegate authority to the executive director to take certain actions. Any question? Do you have a motion?
I could do a motion, and then I also have
You have a
question.
second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Yes, Commissioner?
Great, thanks. And I guess this would be Clarence. I'm not sure who else, but thank you, Clarence.
We're getting money back. Did you bring a check with you, Adam?
How are you, Clarence?
Good afternoon, Commissioners, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor.
Help me understand the formula for this determination. I mean, I know we haven't gone through many of these, but how exactly was the dollar amount of $42,500 determined, and how was that all worked out with the parties involved and communicated?
So the forgivable loan that we gave to this business owner was $170,000. $100,000 was the PBIP program, and the other $70,000 was for facade. They were all administratively done because they did not go over $100,000. She has 4 properties, so that $170,000 spread over the 4 properties. She's trying to get a release just for one property. You divide that 170 by the 4, that gives you the $42,500, which she's seeking a release for the one property. So she's paying back a prorated amount of the one property that she's getting a release for, which is the $42,500.
So it was just it's a total. It's the 100 and the 70.
Yes.
And then
combined
1/4 of the total.
Exactly.
Okay. And that was all explained and understood, and
yes,
everybody was good.
Everybody's on the same page.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? There being none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Sorensen,
Yes.
Vice Chair Moritas,
Yes.
Commissioner Glassman,
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Chair Trentalis.
Yes, and the, the motion is approved. Is there any further business of the CRA?
There's not.
Meeting is concluded. May I now, at this time, the city commission shall meet privately to conduct.
Actually, Mayor, we're going to do this
discussions.
differently. I led you incorrectly. I'm
What,
sorry.
what?
Sorry. I led you before I conferred with the city attorney. So we're actually just going to go to a closed meeting at this point to discuss the unsolicited proposal.
Right.
Then we'll come live again publicly for you to read that announcement. So we're going to hold off for that announcement right now. We'll
Don't
do
I have
that
to read
shortly.
the announcement in order to be able to conduct this privately?
No, not the first.
Not the first
The
one.
first
Okay.
discussion's on the 255, so we don't have
Fine.
So what happens to the audience?
to. They gotta go.
It's,
They know that?
yeah, they have to leave.
Do they know that?
Well, I'm about to say
They're
something.
still sitting there.
All right, so we're gonna have a closed door session, everybody. We need to ask everyone to leave, except the commission, and the city manager, and the city attorney, and the city auditor, and the city clerk.
Yes, I've been there, brother.
But everyone else.
Raise until you can party before you get too old.
Get that nighttime going, man.
I'm Geritol now.